What if the food you ate every day could change your life forever? It was just a passing comment on a podcast, barely 10 seconds long. But for Jake Carter, it hit like a lightning bolt. He had been lying on the living room floor, foam roller under his back, eyes squinting at the cracked ceiling as pain pulsed through his knees like clockwork. Every evening was the same: stiffness, swelling, and a throbbing ache that stole his patience, his energy, and lately, his will to keep pretending everything was okay. Jake wasn't old, not even close. At 38, he should have been coaching his son's soccer team or leading product design meetings at the tech firm he co-founded. Instead, most days he struggled just to stand up without wincing. The pain had started after an old football injury years ago, but in recent months, it had grown into something unmanageable. Bone-on-bone arthritis, the doctors called it. Irreversible. Progressive. Incurable. Then Elon Musk's voice crackled through his phone. "I've been cutting back on meat. I feel lighter, more focused." It surprised me too. That was it. No dramatic reveal. No new company announcement. Just a passing thought from the world's most unpredictable billionaire. But something about the way he said it, the casual tone, like he wasn't even trying to make a point, grabbed Jake by the collar and wouldn't let go. He sat up, wincing as his knees cracked. Rewound the podcast. Played the clip again. Then again. "I've been cutting back on meat. I feel lighter, more focused." Jake stared at his phone like it had just predicted the future. He wasn't the kind of guy who fell for wellness fads. He'd scoffed at celery juice and intermittent fasting. But this wasn't coming from a green juice guru. This was Elon Musk. And something in Jake, something quiet and desperate, decided to listen. That night, Jake couldn't sleep. Not because of the pain, though it certainly helped keep him awake. But because for the first time in months, maybe years, his brain had latched onto a thread of curiosity. The kind that didn't hurt. The kind that felt like motion. Could food actually change the way his body worked? Could it undo pain? He reached for his laptop and started typing. Plant-based diet arthritis relief. Google threw 1,000 articles at him, some sketchy, some scientific. Anti-inflammatory diets. Omega-3s. Lentils. Tofu. Quinoa. Gut microbiome. The rabbit hole went deep, and Jake fell hard. At 2:37 a.m., he found a clinical study from a university in California. Patients with moderate to severe rheumatoid arthritis had shown marked improvement after adopting a plant-based diet. Less swelling. Better mobility. Some even reduced or stopped medication. He blinked. Twice. Then leaned back and whispered, "Is this for real?" The next morning, Jake stood in front of his fridge like a stranger in his own home. Bacon. Eggs. Leftover lasagna. 3 cans of beer. Half a rotisserie chicken. He sighed. This isn't food. This is tradition. But still, he grabbed a pen and notepad and started listing things he'd seen in the articles: spinach, lentils, sweet potatoes, avocado, quinoa, tempeh. Most of the names felt like code words for a lifestyle he didn't understand. Still, he wrote them down. "Are you meal planning?" Anna asked from across the kitchen. She wore the same tired expression she'd had for months, her eyes guarded. "Sort of," Jake said, unsure how much to explain. "Just trying something." She poured coffee slowly. "What kind of something?" He hesitated. "Plant-based. Anti-inflammatory stuff. I heard something interesting last night." Anna raised an eyebrow. "From who?" "Elon Musk," Jake said. The silence was instant. Thick. She leaned against the counter and crossed her arms. "You're taking diet advice from Elon Musk?" Jake scratched the back of his neck. "Not advice, exactly. It got me thinking. Anna didn't say anything. She didn't have to. The look on her face said it all. Jake's pain wasn't just in his joints anymore. It was everywhere, in their conversations, their routines, their intimacy. For months, she'd been watching him slowly disappear under the weight of something invisible and unfixable. And now, out of nowhere, he was scribbling down lentils and quoting tech billionaires like they were prophets. "I'm just trying something," Jake said again, a little softer. He started small, oatmeal with berries instead of bacon and eggs. A salad with chickpeas for lunch. Sweet potato and quinoa for dinner. It wasn't gourmet, and it wasn't exciting. But by the third day, something weird happened. Jake slept through the night. It wasn't miraculous. His knees still ached. But for the first time in weeks, he hadn't woken up at 4 a.m. with that deep, gnawing fire behind his kneecaps. Coincidence? Maybe. But he couldn't shake the feeling that his body was paying attention. He kept going. By the end of the first week, he had a new routine. Mornings started with green smoothies. Lunch meant lentil soup or veggie wraps. Dinners were experiments, some good, some disasters. But more than anything, he felt active again. Not physically, yet, but mentally. Emotionally. He started journaling his progress. Taking short videos on his phone. Day 7, he said, camera pointed at his face. Woke up today and walked to the kitchen without cursing. That's a win, right? He smiled. A real one. He hadn't smiled at himself in a while. By the second week, something strange happened. Jake noticed it not in his knees, but in his hands. They weren't as swollen. He could type longer without cramping. The tingling had faded. When he mentioned it to Anna, she didn't say much. Just nodded and went back to scrolling on her phone. But later that night, he caught her looking at his dinner plate. Quietly curious. He didn't say anything. Just offered her a bite of his lentil stew. She shook her head. But not with a no. With a not yet. Jake had no idea where this journey was going. He didn't know if Elon Musk actually followed a plant-based diet or if the podcast comment had just been an offhand remark. He didn't care. Because for the first time in a long time, he had a question worth chasing. And maybe, just maybe, a story worth telling. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Before the arthritis. Before the pain. Before the late-night Googling and quinoa dinners, there was just Jake. Jake Carter used to run. Not metaphorically. Literally. Fast, agile, unstoppable. He was the kind of guy who showed up to high school track meets already knowing he'd win. His natural athleticism was a gift, and he treated it like a birthright. In college, he played wide receiver for the University of Colorado. Not Division I fame and fortune level, but good enough to get him a scholarship, attention, and a taste of what the world could offer when your body cooperated. Then came the injury. It was second quarter against Boise State. He went up for a catch, simple slant route. Came down sideways. There was a crunch. A scream. And then, blackness. Torn ACL. Shredded meniscus. The surgeon said it was one of the worst he'd seen in an athlete under 25. Rehab was grueling. The scholarship didn't renew. Football was over. Just like that. That was more than a decade ago, but Jake could still feel the ghost of it every time he climbed stairs or crouched to tie his shoes. The physical damage was one thing. The emotional fallout. That cut deeper. After football, he pivoted hard. Threw himself into tech. Coding became his new competition. Algorithms replaced adrenaline. He had a knack for UX design and a brain that loved problem solving. By 30, Jake had co-founded a growing startup in Denver with 2 college friends. They built productivity apps, sleek and intuitive, that companies actually wanted to use. Investors came knocking. Forbes did a piece. They called Jake the quiet visionary with the grit of an athlete. He laughed when he read it. It felt like a win. A real one. That's also when he met Anna. She wasn't flashy. She wasn't chasing tech bros or IPOs. She was a kindergarten teacher, practical to her bones and fiercely grounded. Jake liked that about her. She made things feel calm, steady. Predictable in the best way. They married after 2 years, bought a modest home outside Boulder, and had a son, Theo. For a while, things felt whole. Then the pain started creeping back in. First his knee. Then his other knee. Then his right wrist. Then his shoulder. Doctors said it was arthritis. Post-traumatic onset, they called it. A delayed storm from all that damage he did in his 20s. He was 35 and told he had the joints of a 65-year-old. Anna tried to help. At first. She encouraged him to stay active. They tried couples yoga once. Jake couldn't even finish the warm-up. He hated the way the instructor kept glancing at him with sympathy. Eventually, he stopped trying. And that was the real beginning of the slide. It wasn't just the physical limitations. It was the way the pain turned into personality. Jake became shorter with his words. More withdrawn. He missed school recitals because the idea of standing in a crowd for 90 minutes felt like torture. He stopped playing with Theo in the backyard. When Theo asked why he didn't want to race anymore, Jake snapped, "Because I'm not 10 years old, that's why." The look on Theo's face haunted him for weeks. Anna distanced herself, not out of anger, but exhaustion. They stopped touching. Conversations turned into logistical check-ins. Grocery lists. Calendar syncs. Marriage on mute. Jake knew it was his fault. But knowing didn't stop the unraveling. By the time he heard that line from Elon Musk, Jake was a shadow of the man he used to be. He didn't recognize his reflection anymore. Not in mirrors. Not in his work. Not in the way his wife looked at him across the dinner table with that mixture of sadness and resignation. He felt like a burden. A broken tool taking up space in the toolbox. So yeah, when Elon Musk said something as offhand as, "I cut down on meat," and then mentioned feeling better, it felt like a breadcrumb. A clue. A thread worth pulling. Jake knew it sounded ridiculous. That a billionaire inventor talking about his diet on a podcast wasn't exactly a medical breakthrough. But when you're drowning, you don't judge the rope someone throws you. You just grab it. What he hadn't expected was the memory it stirred. Jake was 16, watching his mom stir lentils into a bubbling pot on their ancient stove. She used to say, "Lentils are poor man's meat, but rich man's medicine." He'd laughed at her then. Thought it was just something she picked up from a health blog or her yoga teacher. But maybe she was right. Maybe the body could heal. Maybe food wasn't just fuel, it was strategy. He wished she were still alive so he could ask her more. Or just tell her he was finally listening. Back in the present, Jake sat at the edge of his bed, rubbing lavender balm into his knees, the way the arthritis subreddit recommended. Anna was already asleep beside him, her back turned. He watched her for a moment, her slow, even breath, and felt the ache in his chest tighten more than the one in his joints. He hadn't told her everything. About how lost he'd felt. About how close he'd come to giving up. Not just on the pain. On the life they'd built. The life he wanted back. But he wasn't there anymore. At least, not fully. For the first time in a long time, he was moving towards something. Something different. Something possible. Jake Carter had always been a guy who needed proof. He didn't fall for buzzwords. He didn't jump on trends. In the startup world, you had to test everything. Be it, stress it, throw it into a pressure cooker and see what came out the other side. So when he found himself Googling how to reverse arthritis with plants for the third night in a row, even he raised an eyebrow at himself. But he couldn't help it. The more he read, the deeper he fell. It was like opening a dusty drawer in his brain, one labeled alternative crap that he never thought he'd explore. And yet, here he was, 2 weeks into his journey, staring at a half-eaten bowl of lentil stew, knees wrapped in heating pads, eyes scanning clinical journals like they were treasure maps. He wasn't looking for magic. He was looking for leverage. One study out of Sweden stuck with him. 40 participants with rheumatoid arthritis were placed on a plant-based diet for 3 months. The results? Less pain. Improved range of motion. Lower inflammation markers. Jake leaned back in his chair. Okay, that's something. He clicked over to a YouTube video from a plant-based doctor in LA. Her words stuck. Most people don't need more pills. They need less poison. That felt personal. Because for years, Jake had filled prescriptions like candy. NSAIDs. Steroids. A short stint with biologics that tanked his immune system so hard he caught strep throat twice in one winter. He wasn't anti-medicine. But he was tired of being a hostage to it. That weekend, Jake did something he hadn't done in months. He left the house without a plan. He limped, really, into a downtown organic grocery store and blinked like a tourist. The shelves were full of things he couldn't pronounce: amaranth, jackfruit, nutritional yeast, and people who looked like they hadn't touched a cheeseburger since birth. He felt out of place in his tech hoodie and worn-out sneakers. But something about the scent of turmeric and toasted almonds in the air felt calm. Hopeful. He wandered through the aisles, pushing a cart slowly, scanning labels. Tofu. Tempeh. Frozen quinoa bowls. He picked them up, put them back down, picked them up again. By the time he reached checkout, he had an awkward cart full of lentils, spinach, avocados, plant-based protein powder, turmeric tea, and something called hemp hearts. The cashier smiled. Trying something new? Jake chuckled. Trying to not fall apart. She nodded like she'd heard it before. You're in the right place. Back home, Jake unloaded groceries like sacred objects. Theo wandered into the kitchen, staring at the countertop. Are we going vegan now? He asked, his voice skeptical but amused. Jake smirked. I don't know, bud. Just testing. Theo picked up a pack of tempeh and squinted. This looks like Legos for aliens. Jake laughed out loud. That's fair. It was a rare moment, a flicker of connection with his son that hadn't happened in weeks. Maybe months. Anna didn't say anything about the groceries. She just gave them a long glance and walked upstairs with her tablet. Jake spent the rest of the weekend doing his own little experiments. Oatmeal with flax seeds and blueberries. Sweet potato tacos with black beans and guacamole. A smoothie with spinach, banana, turmeric, and ginger. It didn't taste like the food he was used to. But it didn't taste bad, either. The real test came Monday morning. Jake sat down at his desk, opened Slack, and realized he had been typing for 20 minutes straight without his fingers aching. He blinked, cracked his knuckles, and typed some more. Still nothing. No way, he whispered to himself. It was subtle, sure. But it was real. And it lit a fire under him. By midweek, Jake had converted a corner of the kitchen into what Anna jokingly called the hippie lab. There were mason jars of soaked lentils, a new blender he got on sale, and a stack of sticky notes on the fridge tracking everything he ate. Day 11, no red meat. Day 12, oatmeal, lentil wrap, quinoa chili. Joints less stiff in the morning. Day 13, energy, mood, digestion weird, maybe too much kale. He wasn't ready to call it a breakthrough, but he was starting to feel like something inside him was shifting, less in his body, more in his mindset. For the first time in years, Jake was choosing action over waiting. Curiosity over cynicism. That night, he posted a short video on Reddit. He sat on the couch, phone balanced on a pillow, knees wrapped again, face tired but alive. Hey guys. My name's Jake. I've had arthritis since I was 25. Used to play ball. Now I just try to stand up without swearing. Anyway, he held up a bowl. This is lentil stew. I've been eating stuff like this for 2 weeks now. I don't know if it's working yet. But I feel like I'm fighting back. That has to count for something, right? He paused, then added, if anyone's tried this plant-based route, let me know. I'd love to compare notes. He posted it. Forgot about it. Went to bed. The next morning, the video had 623 upvotes and over 100 comments. Strangers from around the country, hell, around the world, were chiming in. At Jenna Brew, lentils are life. Been off meds for 6 months now. At Pain Ninja 42, bro, I did the same thing and tempeh is the secret weapon. At Plant Strong Dad, keep going, man. The pain doesn't define you. Jake sat in silence, scrolling. Reading. Grinning. It wasn't just about the food anymore. He was part of something now. That night, he and Theo made black bean burgers together. Messy, uneven patties with way too much garlic. Theo called them dirt cookies, but he ate too. Anna tried a bite. Didn't say anything. But she didn't spit it out, either. Progress. As Jake lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the pain was still there. But it was quieter. And his thoughts were louder. Could food actually change his future? Could a guy like him, used to muscle and meat and control, find power in plants? He didn't know. But he was damn sure going to find out. Jake Carter didn't expect everyone to cheer him on. He just didn't expect the backlash to come so quickly, or from people he trusted most. It started when he told his co-founder, Marcus, over coffee. So. I've been doing this thing, Jake said casually, stirring oat milk into his Americano like it was normal. Marcus arched an eyebrow. What kind of thing? Jake shrugged. I cut out meat. Dairy, too. Started eating mostly plant-based. Trying to get the inflammation down. Marcus leaned back, squinting. That a doctor's suggestion? Not exactly, Jake admitted. I mean, I've read a ton of stuff. There's research. Marcus snorted. So you're taking advice from a YouTube yogi instead of a licensed rheumatologist? Jake tensed. I'm just experimenting. I've got nothing to lose. That's the kind of thinking that gets people buying moon crystals, bro. It stung more than it should have. Jake looked down at his coffee and muttered, I'm not looking for magic. I'm looking for options. Marcus didn't answer. He just tapped his phone, checking Slack like the conversation was already over. Back at home, the doubt crept in like fog under a door. What if this was all placebo? What if the minor improvements were just coincidences or wishful thinking? He wasn't pain-free. He wasn't running marathons. Hell, he still needed to ice his knees after walking Theo home from school. He sat at the kitchen table that night, scrolling through comment sections like a man searching for proof that faith was justified. Some posts gave him fuel. At Doc Plant Power, it's not a miracle. It's science. Food equals data. At Arthritis Rebel 88, I was where you are. Month 3 was when I finally ditched meds. Others felt like punches to the gut. At Truth Hurts 67, this is nonsense. If kale cured arthritis, Big Pharma would be bankrupt. At Realist Dad, another guy duped by green smoothies and influencer hype. Come back when your knees still hurt in a year. Jake closed the laptop. Rested his forehead on the table. Breathed. He hadn't expected the road to feel so lonely. The next morning, he woke up to something unusual: Anna, already dressed, sipping tea at the dining room table. "I watched that video you posted," she said, without looking up. Jake froze in the doorway. "Which one?" "The one about the lentil stew." "Oh," he said. "That one." She took a sip, eyes still on the mug. "You looked lighter." Jake tilted his head. "Like, emotionally or physically?" She cracked a small smile. "Both, maybe." He walked over, sat across from her. "It's not a magic fix. I still hurt." "I know," she said. "But you don't seem buried in it, like before." Jake swallowed the lump rising in his throat. "I think I stopped waiting for someone to fix it for me." Anna nodded. "That's new." It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't a breakthrough. But it was a flicker. A pulse of light through the fog. That day, Jake went all in. He pulled out a giant whiteboard from the garage and stuck it on the wall of his home office. Across the top, in big blue marker, he wrote, "Food equals medicine." Underneath, he started breaking down categories. Protein sources: lentils, chickpeas, tempeh, tofu, black beans. Anti-inflammatory staples: turmeric, ginger, garlic, leafy greens, berries. Foods to avoid: red meat, dairy, processed oils, sugar, gluten, maybe. Supplements: B12, omega-3, algae, vitamin D. He started tracking symptoms more precisely: morning stiffness duration, swelling levels, pain scale from 1 to 10 after meals. It felt obsessive. But also empowering. If tech had taught him anything, it was that data doesn't lie. That weekend, he filmed a new video. He stood in his tiny backyard, Denver skyline behind him, the wind tugging at his hoodie. "Hey guys. It's Jake again. Week 3. Quick update. Still some pain, but overall, things feel different. I have more energy. I'm sleeping better. I feel like I'm doing something, which honestly might be the most healing part so far." He paused. "I get it, this sounds nuts. Some of you think it's BS. Some of you are rooting for me. I'm grateful for both. Because even the doubt pushes me to keep asking questions." He looked into the camera, more steady than before. "I'm not here to sell anyone anything. I just want to know, what if this does work? What if changing what's on our plate changes what we live with every day?" He signed off. Posted. Within hours, messages started flooding in. This time, they weren't just comments. They were stories. A woman in Arizona who reversed her rheumatoid symptoms through a raw plant-based diet. A guy in Chicago who walked without a cane for the first time in years after giving up dairy. A single dad in Florida who used food to help control flare-ups and eventually ditched his immunosuppressants, with his doctor's support. Jake felt something stir in his chest. Not hope. Something sturdier. Conviction. That night, while making a chickpea stir-fry, Theo wandered into the kitchen again. "Can I help?" he asked. Jake handed him the garlic press and smiled. "Crush it like a boss." They cooked in silence for a bit, steam rising, garlic sizzling. Then Theo looked up. "You're not so grumpy anymore." Jake chuckled. "Is that a compliment?" Theo shrugged. "Just saying. You used to yell at the microwave for beeping." Jake wiped his hands on a towel, suddenly emotional. "I'm trying, bud." "I know," Theo said, flipping a piece of tofu with exaggerated care. Jake had no idea what tomorrow would bring, whether the pain would flare, or the doubt would return. But at that moment, surrounded by steam, turmeric, and tiny hope-filled garlic presses, he felt something unfamiliar. He felt like himself again. By week 4, Jake's fridge looked like a Whole Foods display had exploded inside it. Gone were the cartons of milk, the frozen pizzas, the leftover barbecue ribs. In their place, rows of chopped vegetables, mason jars of overnight oats, and shelves stacked with prepped quinoa bowls, tofu marinating in tamari, and glass containers of cooked lentils he'd labeled with masking tape and Sharpie like a guy in a science lab. Jake had gone from curious to committed. He didn't just read about plant-based proteins now, he lived them. He knew which brands of tempeh didn't taste like cardboard. He learned that chickpeas, when roasted right, could silence his cravings for potato chips. And when he found out black beans had almost as much protein per ounce as chicken breast. That was a win. Even better, he was starting to feel real changes. The morning stiffness that used to last 90 minutes now lasted 20. His knees didn't crack every time he stood up. His hands, once swollen and red, looked normal again. And his energy? He wasn't bouncing off the walls, but he no longer needed an afternoon nap just to survive the rest of the day. It wasn't a miracle. It was momentum. "Okay, I'm officially impressed," Anna said one Sunday afternoon, leaning against the counter with a steaming mug of ginger tea. Jake looked up from chopping kale. "Yeah. You've stuck to this longer than you stuck to guitar lessons." Jake grinned. "That was a dark time. My fingers still haven't forgiven me." Anna sipped her tea. "I can't believe I'm saying this, but, the black bean tacos? Not bad." Jake bowed dramatically. "My highest culinary achievement." She smiled, and for a brief moment, things felt normal again, like before the pain, before the distance, before arthritis had wrapped itself around their lives like fog. He didn't say anything, but his heart held on to that smile like it was a promise. Later that night, he updated his whiteboard. Wins, week 4. Energy. Less morning stiffness. No Advil for 5 days. Hand swelling nearly gone. Mood more stable. Questions. Are oats triggering joint pain? Still getting mild afternoon crash, why? Add more omega-3s. Flax/chia/walnuts. He added a new section. Top 3 plant proteins, so far. 1. Lentils, easy, versatile, satisfying. 2. Tempeh, dense, great for lunch bowls. 3. Chickpeas, snacks, salads, even tuna. Jake looked at the list and felt something he hadn't felt since his athletic days: strategy. This wasn't just survival anymore. It was training. But progress wasn't a straight line. On day 28, Jake woke up with a throbbing flare in his right wrist, sharp, pulsing, and unpredictable. It hit like a betrayal. He stared at it for 5 minutes before even moving. All that work. All those smoothies. All the turmeric and kale. And here he was, back in pain. It shook him. He skipped breakfast. Didn't check Reddit. Ignored messages from his arthritis support group. By noon, he sat at his desk, defeated. What if it's all BS, he muttered. What if this is just a dumb phase? But then, something clicked. He remembered something a commenter had posted just a few days ago. Setbacks don't mean failure. They mean your body is still learning how to trust you again. Jake leaned back in his chair, closed his eyes, and breathed. Okay. One flare didn't erase 4 weeks of progress. He iced his wrist. Made tea. Opened his food journal and reviewed the past 3 days. And there it was. 3 days in a row he'd eaten store-bought oat bars full of natural flavors and sugars he hadn't noticed. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe not. But Jake wasn't just logging food anymore. He was studying it. He made a new vow: no assumptions. No shortcuts. No guilt. Just curiosity. If something caused a flare, he'd test it. Replace it. Observe. Adapt. That was the difference between a diet and a strategy. The next morning, he started filming a new video. He held up his wrist to the camera, still wrapped. "Hey folks, it's not always pretty," he said. "Yesterday sucked. Woke up with a flare. Didn't want to talk about it. But that's part of it, right?" He smiled, wry but honest. This isn't a movie montage where everything gets better in 30 days. This is real life. Real pain. Real effort. Some days I win. Some days arthritis does. But I'm not quitting. And that's a win by itself. He posted it without overthinking. By lunch, he had 2,000 views, and something better. A message from a woman named Kara in Seattle. "This made me cry. I had a flare today too. You're not alone. Thanks for showing the messy parts." Later that week, Anna surprised him. "I found this podcast," she said, sliding her phone toward him across the kitchen table. "Plant-based guy. Talks about arthritis a lot. Seems science-y, not preachy." Jake blinked. "Are you listening to plant podcasts now?" Anna shrugged. "I'm curious. And I see the difference in you. You're not giving up anymore." Jake pressed play on the podcast and listened to a calm voice talk about inflammation like it was a math problem, not a death sentence. He smiled. They were healing. Not just his joints. But the space between them, too. That night, after Theo went to bed, Jake and Anna sat on the couch with turmeric tea, watching an old sitcom. Her head rested lightly on his shoulder. "I missed this," he said softly. Anna looked up. "Me too." No dramatic speeches. No violins. Just warmth. And presence. Jake didn't know where this path would lead. But for the first time in years, he wasn't just reacting to pain, he was creating something stronger than it. A process. A practice. A future. The first time Jake woke up without pain, he thought it was a mistake. He blinked into the early morning light, expecting the usual ritual. Flex fingers slowly, test his knees before sitting up, brace for the ache that clung to his joints like a shadow. But this morning? Nothing. No creaking joints. No hot, angry stiffness in his wrists. No resistance when he moved. Just stillness. Quiet. He sat up slowly, half afraid the pain was hiding, waiting to pounce. Still nothing. He swung his legs over the edge of the bed and stood. No wince. No limp. No sharp reminder of what his body used to feel like every morning. "Holy crap," he whispered. He walked to the bathroom like a normal person. No shuffling. No hesitation. It felt like borrowing someone else's body. Downstairs, he scribbled the date on the whiteboard in big, bold letters. Day 33, 0 pain on wake up. He circled it 3 times. He wanted to scream it from the rooftop. Instead, he made pancakes, with oat flour, flaxseed, and mashed banana, and called Theo downstairs with a grin. "Who are you, and what did you do with Grumpy Dad?" Theo said, half asleep, but smiling. Jake flipped a pancake. Grumpy Dad took the day off. Anna poked her head into the kitchen. She looked at Jake, then at the whiteboard, then back at Jake. "You okay?" she asked. "I think I am," he said. Like, actually okay. And for the first time in years, he meant it. That week became a turning point. Every day he woke up without the usual pain felt like unlocking a new level. He walked Theo to school without needing to stop and stretch halfway. He took a light jog, just 2 blocks, but didn't collapse afterward. Didn't flare up. Didn't regret it. His skin looked clearer. His eyes brighter. And when Anna kissed him goodbye before work, it wasn't just habit. It was connection. His co-workers noticed too. "You look different," Marcus said on a Zoom call, squinting at the screen like Jake had changed his haircut. Jake shrugged. "I feel different." Marcus nodded slowly. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." Jake just smiled. He didn't say it was lentils and black beans and turmeric and spinach. He didn't need to. The results were doing the talking now. That Friday, Jake posted a new video to his channel. He stood in front of his whiteboard, which now had graphs, lists, and little red dots marking good and bad days. "Alright, team," he said. "Day 35. I'm not saying I'm cured. Let's not get crazy. But for the first time in over a year, I've had 3 mornings in a row without pain." He held up 3 fingers. "This isn't a sales pitch. I'm not pushing a diet or a miracle product. I'm just saying, this stuff. It's working. At least for me." He turned to the whiteboard. "These 3, lentils, tempeh, chickpeas, have been my MVPs. Every meal includes at least one. I prep on Sundays, eat clean during the week, and I log everything, how I feel after, how I sleep, whether I need meds. It's not sexy. But it's working." He looked back at the camera, serious now. "If you're struggling like I was, you don't have to overhaul your life overnight. Just pick one change. One meal. 1 week. Then build from there." He paused. "I don't know where this ends. But I finally feel like I'm moving forward." The video went viral in the chronic illness community. Not viral. But arthritis Reddit. Plant-based Facebook groups. Health TikTok. They lit up. Jake started getting messages from strangers daily. Some asked for recipes. Others sent their own progress charts. One woman in Ohio said her teenage son, who had juvenile arthritis, had watched Jake's videos every day after school. "You give him hope," she wrote. And that's something no medication ever gave him. Jake sat in his car and cried for 5 minutes after reading that. Not because he was sad. Because he finally felt useful again. That weekend, Anna suggested something wild. "You should do a talk," she said. Jake blinked. "A what?" "You know, like a webinar or live stream. Share your journey. You've got an actual system now. People want to know what's working." "I'm not a health expert." "No," she said. "But you're living it. That's what matters." Jake nodded slowly. Maybe she was right. This wasn't just about arthritis anymore. It was about agency. Taking back control of his body, his time, his relationships. His life. They spent that Sunday filming a more polished video. Anna helped with lighting. Theo designed a silly logo, "Jake vs. Joints," in red comic book letters. Jake laughed when he saw it. "You made this?" "Yeah," Theo said proudly. "You're like a superhero. Except you eat beans instead of fly." Jake tapped the screen. Beans are underrated. The live stream aired the following Saturday. Just a simple talk, Jake, a camera, and a slideshow walking through his journey, from athlete to pain to plant-based pathfinder. He talked about his worst days. The loneliness. The rage. The disbelief when something as simple as food started to make a difference. He talked about the setbacks. The flare. The doubt. And then the shift. The quiet return of function. The moment he could kneel again without gasping. The first morning he stood up straight and realized, this doesn't hurt. Thousands watched. Hundreds commented. Jake logged off, exhausted and buzzing. Anna hugged him. Theo high-fived him. Later that night, he opened his inbox and found a message that made his breath hitch. It was from Dr. Lena Ford, a rheumatologist and nutrition researcher at Stanford. Just watched your stream. Fascinating. We're running a small study on plant-based interventions for chronic inflammation. Would you be open to talking? Jake sat back, stunned. The pain that once shrunk his world was now expanding it. He didn't know what came next. He didn't know how long this remission would last, or if another flare was waiting around the corner. But he knew this. He wasn't afraid anymore. He had tools. A tribe. A path forward. And every day, he kept walking it. One bite at a time. Jake didn't recognize the number. It came in late, 9:47 p.m. on a Thursday, after he'd just posted a meal prep video and was settling in with a hot cup of ginger tea. Denver area code. But not saved in his contacts. He let it ring, figuring if it mattered, they'd leave a message. They did. When he played it back, the tea slipped from his hands. Hey, Jake, it's Emily. Yeah. That Emily. I saw one of your videos. Honestly, I almost didn't believe it was you. But, yeah. Wow. You look different. Stronger. Anyway, I'll be in town next week. Thought it might be cool to catch up, if you're up for it. No pressure. He sat frozen. Emily. It had been almost 9 years since she walked out of his life. Since the injury. Since the days when his world was basketball and bad jokes and a belief that pain was something you just played through. They were in love once. The real kind. The kind where she could read his mood with a glance and match his sarcasm beat for beat. She'd held his hand during the first arthritic flare and told him it was just a weird sprain. Neither of them knew then what it would turn into. Jake pressed his fingers to his temples, breathing deep. Why now? He didn't tell Anna right away. Not because he was hiding anything, but because he didn't know what it meant yet. Besides, things between them were finally stabilizing. Anna had been supportive, even playful lately. They were cooking together, watching shows again, laughing like it wasn't forced. But still, the message burned in the back of his brain. Emily. She had seen him at his worst, and left. But not in anger. In fear. Fear of becoming his nurse. Of being stuck in a cycle neither of them could escape. He never blamed her. He just, never expected her to resurface. The next day, Jake went on his longest walk yet, 2 miles around City Park. He brought a smoothie packed with kale, blueberries, chia seeds, and almond milk. His go-to now. As his shoes crunched against gravel and geese waddled past, he let his mind wander back to a younger version of himself, the one who thought strength meant hiding pain. The guy Emily fell in love with wasn't the one in front of the camera now. And maybe, that was a good thing. Later that night, he told Anna. They were folding laundry in silence, comfortable in their shared rhythm, when he finally said. Emily called. Anna didn't react at first. Just paused mid-fold. Emily who? Emily. From before. She turned slightly, eyebrow raised. Wow. Okay. What did she want? She's in town next week. Said she saw one of my videos. Thought it'd be cool to catch up. Anna nodded slowly. Are you going? Jake shrugged. I don't know. I'm not. I don't have feelings for her. It's not like that. I didn't ask if you did, Anna said. But you still kept it quiet until now. He looked down at the folded shirts. I just didn't know what to say. Or if it even mattered. Anna sat on the edge of the bed. I get it. She was there before all this. She saw a version of you I didn't. Jake met her eyes. You're the one who stayed. She gave a small smile. Yeah. I did. Silence settled between them, heavier than before. Jake placed a hand on her shoulder. If you're not okay with me seeing her, I won't. Simple as that. Anna looked down for a second, then back up. I trust you. But just be honest, with her, and with yourself. That version of you. He's not who you are anymore. He nodded. And the next day, he texted Emily. They met at a small coffee shop near Union Station. The kind with reclaimed wood tables and oat milk by default. Jake wore a zip hoodie and sneakers. He still limped slightly, but less than before. Emily showed up in a blazer, hair longer than he remembered, eyes just as sharp. She smiled when she saw him. Jake Carter. Alive and kicking. He grinned. Barely kicking. But yeah. They hugged. Light, not loaded. Over matcha lattes and awkward small talk, they eased into something that felt like old friends reuniting. I honestly didn't recognize you at first, Emily said. You've changed. Thanks, Jake said. I think. No, I mean it. You always talked about changing your diet, getting serious. I never thought you'd actually do it. Jake leaned back. Me neither, honestly. They laughed. It felt weird. Familiar. Then Emily looked down, then back up, more serious now. I've thought about you a lot, she said. Especially after I got diagnosed. Jake blinked. Wait, what? Emily nodded. Last year. Early RA, genetic, apparently. Runs in my mom's side. I thought of you the second I heard it. His chest tightened. How are you doing? He asked. She smiled weakly. Still figuring it out. Methotrexate, mostly. Haven't made the food leap. Not brave like you. Jake shook his head. It's not bravery. It's desperation that turned into curiosity. Still, she said. Seeing you like this gives me hope. Jake hesitated. I could send you my food log. Or links to what helped. I'd love that, she said. If that's okay. It's more than okay. They parted with a hug, real this time. A quiet moment of shared pain, shared resilience. Not romance. Just respect. As Jake walked back to his car, he texted Anna. Just finished. It was good. No weirdness. She's going through it too. I told her I'd share some resources. Heading home now. Miss you. Anna replied in seconds. Thanks for telling me. Can't wait to hear how it went. Dinner's on. Chickpea curry. Red heart. Jake smiled at the screen. Emily was part of his past. Anna was part of his future. And Jake? Jake was finally living in the present. Jake didn't realize how much energy he had until he didn't need to save it anymore. In the past, every action, every decision, had been calculated to avoid pain. He'd schedule his workday around his meds, make sure he had a cushion of rest between tasks, and even planned his meals to limit flare-ups. But now, with the inflammation under control, Jake felt something he hadn't in years, a steady supply of energy. It was as if his body had been running on fumes for so long, and now he had a full tank of gas. He had more ideas than he knew what to do with. Anna noticed it first. They were at dinner, something simple, chickpea curry, as promised. Jake had insisted on helping, though she had to remind him that his involvement would likely ruin the meal with his experiments, which usually meant adding just a little bit more turmeric. I think it's time you start working with someone, Anna said, watching him chop bell peppers a little too enthusiastically. Working with someone? Jake asked, glancing up. Yeah, like a coach or mentor, Anna said. You've got all this energy. It's like you're walking on fire now. You could channel it. You've been through so much. You've got this insane knowledge, and your story, your journey, is exactly what so many people need. Jake set down the knife. You think? I know, she said, giving him an encouraging smile. People trust you. They feel your struggle. Jake looked out the window, thinking. The idea had been nagging at him for a while now. But he was still grappling with the uncertainty of his own recovery. Could he really turn his newfound health into something useful for others? Was he ready to dive into coaching or speaking or whatever else this fire was pushing him to? I don't know, he said finally. Feels a bit like I'm pretending, like I haven't earned that yet. I'm still figuring it out. I've only been at this for 2 months? Exactly, Anna said, raising her eyebrows. And you're already a walking testament to what's possible. You're giving people hope, Jake. You've done more for yourself in that short time than any of the meds ever did. The next day, Jake did something he'd never imagined doing. He scheduled a call with Dr. Lena Ford. He'd gotten an email back from her the night after his conversation with Emily, and she'd invited him to discuss his journey in more detail. She was leading a new study on plant-based interventions for chronic inflammation and wanted to hear about his experiences. Jake had the sense that this wasn't just an academic conversation, it felt like an opportunity to validate everything he'd been doing, and maybe even expand it into something bigger. The call went better than he could have hoped. Dr. Ford was open, inquisitive, and most importantly, she listened, really listened, as Jake talked about his path to health. He told her about the first month, how his joints screamed for mercy at first but then slowly started to calm. He explained how he'd found comfort in simple foods, lentils, beans, tofu, and the surprising power of turmeric, spinach, and ginger. It's wild, Jake said, shaking his head as he sat at his desk, typing notes. I'm living proof that these things work. Not just for weight loss or energy, but for actual joint health. And for inflammation. It's like this quiet revolution in my body. Dr. Ford responded with a thoughtful hum. It's an amazing story, Jake. But we need more data. More evidence. I'd like to invite you to be a part of this study. It's small, but we think it could lead to something big. If you're willing. Jake's heart skipped a beat. Are you serious? Absolutely, she said. I'm very interested in what you've learned through your own journey. We could use your experience to help others. The study was small, only a handful of participants. But that didn't matter to Jake. This was a chance to add a layer of legitimacy to everything he had been feeling. It wasn't just about him anymore, this was about proving, with data, what the plant-based approach could do for people in pain. He accepted the offer without hesitation. The next day, he was in a clinical setting, answering questions, providing logs of his food and activity. He even took a blood test for baseline inflammation markers. It felt surreal. The researchers were excited, impressed with how well Jake had responded. He was healthy, more active, and truly engaged in the process, something they said was rare in people with long-term inflammation issues. Jake, your results could really help shift the narrative on plant-based diets and chronic inflammation, Dr. Ford said, as they reviewed the data. As he left the clinic, Jake felt a surge of excitement mixed with disbelief. This was really happening. He was getting involved in the kind of scientific work he had once thought was completely out of reach for someone like him. But his professional work wasn't the only thing fueling him. His family was. And the continued progress in his own health. Anna had mentioned a coach, and Jake wasn't the type to act on a whim. But now that he was making real progress, he knew it was time to take another step. Jake reached out to a local holistic health coach who specialized in chronic pain and inflammation, a woman named Rachel who had built a reputation for helping people with conditions like his. He emailed her late one night, outlining his story, his current situation, and his desire to help others who were struggling like he once did. Rachel responded the next morning. I'd love to work with you, she said. You've got a unique perspective, Jake. Let's talk. The next few weeks were a blur. Jake balanced his study with Dr. Ford, his work on the channel, and his new coaching venture. He was creating content to teach people about inflammation, diet, and healing, but he was also learning the ins and outs of coaching, how to structure calls, listen effectively, and provide actionable advice. The excitement in his chest grew each day. This wasn't just about him anymore, it was about showing others what was possible when they made different choices. It was about taking control of their health the way he had. By the end of the month, Jake had his first official client. A woman named Maria, who had suffered from osteoarthritis for years. She was skeptical but desperate, and Jake was ready to offer her everything he had learned. "Give me 6 weeks," he said, "and I'll show you that pain doesn't have to be your reality." The next few months would be challenging. But Jake wasn't afraid anymore. He had found his purpose. And he had the tools to fight. Jake felt the rush every time he opened his inbox. It wasn't just the comments on his videos or the praise from followers. It was the clients, real people, with real problems, coming to him for help. Maria's first 6 weeks were coming to a close, and Jake was feeling the pressure. It was his first experience as a coach, and the results he had promised her were weighing heavily on him. She had shown progress, small, but meaningful. Her pain levels were down, her mobility improved, and her energy had skyrocketed. But was it enough? He was about to find out. He called Maria for their final check-in call, the one that would either solidify his new career or leave him questioning everything. She answered on the second ring. "Hey, Jake." Her voice was warm, confident, and had a slight edge of excitement. "Hey, Maria," he replied. "How are you feeling?" Maria paused for a moment. I'm amazed, honestly. I don't think I can even put into words how much better I feel. I've been walking without a cane. No more limping. It's almost like I got a new body." Jake's heart swelled. "That's incredible, Maria. You did the hard work." Maria laughed softly. "Don't sell yourself short. You helped me make the changes. You showed me what was possible. I thought this was just how my life was going to be, chronic pain, limitation, a life of managing the best I could." Jake felt his throat tighten. "I'm so glad it worked for you. You deserve to feel better." "Thank you. You know, Jake, I've been telling everyone about you. I've got my sister, my neighbor, people are noticing the change in me. I've referred them to your channel. They're asking me how I did it." Jake was silent for a beat, taking in the weight of her words. This wasn't just about him anymore. It wasn't just about his recovery. It was about creating a ripple effect, one person at a time. "I'm really glad, Maria. I'll always be here if you need more support." As they wrapped up the call, Maria told him, "Jake, you've got something big here. Don't stop." That was the moment Jake knew. He was onto something. By the end of that week, he had 4 more clients lined up. Word had spread fast, and he couldn't have been more excited. But he also felt the weight of responsibility. He was now accountable for these people's journeys. He was becoming more than just a guy who'd healed himself, he was becoming a coach, a guide, a source of hope. With the momentum building, Jake knew he needed to up his game. He had started his journey with food, lifestyle changes, and self-discovery, but he was starting to realize just how much he still had to learn. He wasn't a trained professional in pain management or inflammation, and though his personal results spoke volumes, he wanted more. He wanted to be the best version of himself, both as a person and as a coach. So, he began to immerse himself in research. Every free moment was spent reading studies, books on holistic health, nutrition, and coaching techniques. He reached out to health professionals for advice, attended webinars on pain management, and even enrolled in an online certification course to gain more insight into chronic illness and how best to help people like Maria. His goal was clear: he didn't just want to be a coach. He wanted to be a recognized expert in chronic pain relief, specifically for people dealing with arthritis. He wanted his name to be synonymous with hope. The next big step was coming. Jake had already been recording more videos for his YouTube channel, but he knew he needed something bigger. He had been getting a lot of feedback from followers asking for more in-depth advice, more guidance that could help them tackle their pain, food choices, and exercise routines in real time. That's when he decided to create an online program, something he could offer to anyone, anywhere. The program would be comprehensive. It would combine the foundational principles he had learned about plant-based eating, exercise routines designed to reduce inflammation, stress management techniques, and the mindset work that kept him moving forward. He knew it was a lot to juggle, but he was ready. The course would be his next level. It wasn't long before he started drafting the curriculum. Each module was designed to educate and empower. Module 1, Understanding Inflammation and How It Affects You. Module 2, The Power of Food, Plant-Based Healing for Arthritis. Module 3, Movement, Not Pain, Exercises that help you build strength without flare UPS. Module 4, Managing Stress, Tools for a Healthy Mindset. Module 5, Real-Life Success Stories, The Road to Relief. Jake envisioned it as more than just a series of lessons. It would be a community, a place where people could find the support they needed to fight their pain and reclaim their lives. He spent the next few weeks crafting the program, filming content, creating worksheets, and finalizing a website to host everything. It was a lot of work, but it was a labor of love. This was his chance to truly make an impact. One afternoon, as Jake sat editing videos in his home office, Anna knocked on the door. She peeked her head in, a concerned look on her face. "Hey, you okay?" she asked. Jake leaned back in his chair. "Yeah, just trying to finish up the course stuff. It's a lot, but I think I'm almost there." Anna stepped in, sitting on the edge of the desk. "I can see the fire in your eyes. But you've been working non-stop. You need a break. Let's go out for a walk. Clear your mind." He grinned, grateful for her balance. "I guess I could use one." They slipped on their shoes and stepped outside, the cool breeze of early spring greeting them as they walked through their neighborhood. The city was buzzing with life, but Jake felt a quiet peace settle over him. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't rushing to catch up to something. He was on his own path, one that was entirely his. "I've been thinking," Anna said, breaking the silence. "I'm proud of you. You've come so far. And it's not just about your health anymore. It's about all the people you're helping. You've built something real here." Jake squeezed her hand. "I couldn't have done it without you. You've been there every step of the way." Anna smiled. "That's the point. We're in this together." That night, Jake sat down to a new kind of dinner. It wasn't just about fueling his body anymore, it was about fueling his purpose. He had taken his pain, his struggles, and turned them into something powerful. The journey wasn't over, not by a long shot. But for the first time, Jake felt that he was on the right path. And this time, he wasn't just fighting for himself. He was fighting for every person who had ever believed their pain was permanent. Jake sat at his desk, staring at the blinking cursor on the screen, but the words wouldn't come. He'd been working non-stop for weeks, balancing his coaching clients, the online course, and his social media presence. Each new task seemed more daunting than the last. He'd reached a point where it felt like the wall in front of him was too thick to break through. The wall wasn't just physical exhaustion, it was the mental fatigue that came with growing a business from the ground up. It was the realization that he couldn't do everything alone, and that sometimes, the weight of his mission felt like it was too much to carry. But that night, as Jake sat in the quiet of his office, surrounded by half-finished projects and unanswered emails, a thought crossed his mind. Maybe this isn't about me anymore. Maybe it's about everyone else. The thought hit him hard. For the first time in weeks, Jake let himself admit that he had been trying to do everything perfectly. Trying to be the perfect coach, the perfect example, the perfect success story. And in doing so, he had lost sight of the real reason he started this journey in the first place, to help people, not to build a flawless business. He needed to recalibrate. Anna had noticed the shift before he did. She'd been quiet the past few days, letting him do his thing, but now, as they sat down for dinner, she placed a hand gently on his. "You look exhausted," she said softly. "You've been pushing so hard, Jake. I don't want you to burn out." Jake sighed, leaning back in his chair. "I'm not burning out. Just feeling overwhelmed. It's not like before, where I was just trying to survive. Now, I've got a responsibility. To my clients. To the people who look up to me. And I'm not sure I can handle it all." Anna gave him a knowing look. "You can't do it all. And you don't have to." Jake raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "You've got the knowledge, the passion, and the drive. But you can't grow this thing without a team. You need help, Jake. You don't have to carry the weight alone." It was hard to admit, but she was right. He had been so focused on his own healing and growth that he hadn't considered how much more he could accomplish with the right support system in place. The next morning, Jake reached out to a virtual assistant to help with the day-to-day operations of his business. He knew that if he was going to keep up with his clients, create valuable content, and build a sustainable program, he needed someone who could take care of the administrative side of things. And then, there was the coaching itself. Jake loved working one-on-one with people, but he knew his course needed more. He needed someone who could assist with the group coaching sessions, someone who could bring their own expertise to the table. That's when he reached out to Rachel, the holistic health coach he had connected with earlier. They had talked a few times about collaborating, but now it felt like the right time to bring her on board. Rachel was thrilled at the idea. She had been following Jake's journey closely, and it was clear that they shared a passion for helping people heal from chronic pain through natural methods. After a few initial calls, they came up with a plan to co-host group coaching sessions, offer workshops, and collaborate on content for Jake's online program. It was a relief to Jake. The wall was starting to crumble, piece by piece. As he worked through these changes, Jake couldn't help but feel a new sense of clarity. Delegating tasks to others didn't mean he was giving up control. It meant he was creating space for more growth. More people to help. More lives to change. But the road wasn't smooth just yet. The first few weeks with Rachel on board were full of challenges. They hit a few snags in the group coaching structure, and there were moments when the tech side of things didn't quite work as planned. Jake still found himself feeling frustrated at times, but now he had Rachel to lean on. They were building something together, a community that went beyond just his personal story. They started hosting weekly Q&A sessions, where members of the course could ask questions, share their struggles, and support each other. The feedback was incredible. People were opening up about their pain, their challenges, and their successes. It wasn't just a course anymore, it was a movement. One afternoon, as Jake and Rachel were going over the details of their next workshop, Jake received an email that made his stomach drop. It was from the team at the clinical study he had participated in with Dr. Ford. They wanted to meet with him. Jake knew the study was still ongoing, but he hadn't expected to hear from them so soon. Was something wrong? Had his results been questioned? He couldn't help but feel a little nervous. The meeting was scheduled for the following week, and the anticipation weighed heavily on him in the days leading up to it. When the meeting finally came, Jake joined the video call with Dr. Ford and the research team. They started by reviewing his participation in the study, the changes he had experienced, and his commitment to the process. "Jake, we've been reviewing your data," Dr. Ford began, her tone serious but kind. "We're impressed with the progress you've made. Your inflammation levels have dropped significantly, and you've shown remarkable improvements in both pain management and mobility." Jake exhaled, relieved but still anxious about what was coming next. "What's this meeting about, then?" he asked. "We believe that your results, and the way you've implemented the plant-based protocol, could be incredibly valuable for the scientific community," Dr. Ford continued. "In fact, we'd like to invite you to co-author a paper with us. A case study detailing your transformation and the potential impact of plant-based diets on arthritis management." Jake's jaw dropped. A published paper. He had no idea how much this could elevate everything he was doing. I don't know what to say," Jake stammered. "You don't have to say anything yet," Dr. Ford said with a smile. "We just wanted to see if you'd be open to the idea. It's a big step, but we think your story can make a significant impact on how we view arthritis treatment." That night, as Jake told Anna the news, he felt a deep sense of accomplishment. The weight of the wall he had been pushing against didn't seem so heavy anymore. There was a way forward, a way through the uncertainty. And it wasn't just about his success anymore, it was about showing the world what was possible for others. He didn't have to do everything alone. He didn't have to be perfect. All he had to do was keep moving forward, one step at a time. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The first sign that Jake was making a real impact came unexpectedly, and it didn't happen through a social media post or a viral video. It happened through a letter. Jake sat at his kitchen table one evening, sorting through the mail, when he came across an envelope addressed to him in neat handwriting. It wasn't from a company or a client. It was from a woman named Linda who had been a follower of his YouTube channel for months. She had heard his story about how he healed from arthritis using plant-based foods and lifestyle changes, and her letter was filled with gratitude. "Dear Jake," the letter began, "I want you to know that your journey has given me hope. I've lived with arthritis for over 20 years, and no one, no doctor, no specialist, ever told me there was another way. I've been stuck in a cycle of pain medication and treatments that only worked for a short time. But after listening to your story and starting to incorporate what you teach, I can finally say that I feel better. My pain is more manageable, and I have the energy to do things I never thought I'd be able to again. You've given me my life back. Thank you." Jake set the letter down, his eyes stinging with unshed tears. He couldn't believe it. The ripple effect was real. He hadn't just made a difference for Maria and the people in his program. He was touching lives far beyond what he could see. And the impact of that was humbling. He was doing more than helping people get out of pain. He was showing them that their lives could be different. The following week, Jake and Rachel launched their first joint workshop. They had been brainstorming for months on how to create an experience that was as powerful as it was informative. The idea was simple: teach attendees about the connection between food, inflammation, and pain management, while also giving them tools to incorporate lifestyle changes that would help them heal. They called it the Healing Through Change Workshop. Jake had been nervous about it at first. Workshops were a different beast than videos or one-on-one coaching sessions. He was used to speaking to an audience through a screen, but this was live. There was no editing, no second takes. This was his chance to connect in real time with people who were desperate for a solution, just like he had been. The day of the workshop, they gathered in a small conference room. The group was a mix of people. Some were curious about Jake's plant-based approach, while others had already started making changes but needed more guidance. There were people of all ages, from those newly diagnosed to those who had been dealing with arthritis for decades. As Jake stepped up to the front of the room, the weight of the moment hit him. This wasn't just another video or post. This was real life, real people looking to him for answers. He cleared his throat, smiled at the group, and began. "When I first started my journey, I had no idea where it would lead. I was in constant pain, and nothing worked. But what I've learned is that healing isn't just about the pills we take or the treatments we try, it's about giving our bodies what they need to truly thrive. It's about food, movement, mindset, and community. Today, we're going to walk through all of that. The workshop flowed seamlessly. Jake and Rachel took turns speaking, sharing their personal stories, and explaining how a plant-based diet could reduce inflammation and support long-term health. They showed participants easy, delicious recipes, taught them simple exercises to incorporate into their daily routines, and even facilitated group discussions where everyone could share their experiences. But the most powerful moment of the day came during a group activity. Jake had asked everyone to pair up and share a personal story about their arthritis journey, what had worked, what hadn't, and how they felt about their current situation. As the room filled with voices, Jake looked around and realized something profound: they weren't just talking about pain. They were talking about hope. By the end of the workshop, Jake had a dozen new clients eager to start their healing journeys. More than that, he had witnessed something he hadn't fully expected: the beginning of a true community. People were exchanging contact information, making plans to meet outside the workshop, and vowing to support each other through the process. It wasn't just about Jake anymore. It was about a group of individuals united by a common goal, taking control of their health and healing together. In the weeks that followed, Jake began to see a shift in his business. His online course grew, with more and more people signing up. The feedback from his clients was overwhelmingly positive, and many of them began to share their progress in online forums, social media groups, and even their own communities. Jake had unknowingly created a ripple effect that was reaching far beyond what he could imagine. But it wasn't just the clients who were noticing. The scientific community was starting to pay attention, too. Dr. Ford reached out again with exciting news. The paper they had co-authored together about Jake's transformation was accepted for publication in a well-respected medical journal. The paper would highlight the success of using a plant-based diet to manage arthritis, and Jake's story would be the case study that backed it up. Jake could hardly believe it. His work was going from personal success to scientific validation. He was becoming a legitimate voice in the world of health and wellness, and it felt surreal. The next big step came when Jake was invited to speak at a health conference. It was the kind of event where industry leaders, researchers, and health professionals gathered to discuss the latest trends in medical treatments and lifestyle improvements. The invitation wasn't just a personal achievement, it was a chance to amplify his message on a much larger scale. He was nervous, but as soon as he stepped onto the stage, the familiar feeling of connection took over. The audience was filled with people who wanted to know how they could improve their own health or the health of their patients. They were hungry for information, and Jake was ready to give it to them. The talk was a success. He spoke about his journey, his struggles, his breakthroughs, and the lessons he had learned along the way. He talked about the importance of holistic health, the power of food, and the need for a mindset shift in dealing with chronic pain. At the end of his speech, the room erupted in applause. As he left the stage, a flood of people approached him, eager to talk, ask questions, and learn more about his approach. Jake realized, for the first time, that he wasn't just telling his story anymore, he was building a bridge. A bridge between the world of chronic illness and the solutions that could actually work. A bridge between people who were suffering and the hope they didn't even know existed. That night, Jake called Anna and shared the news. "I did it," he said, his voice filled with a mixture of disbelief and excitement. "I spoke at the conference. And people were actually listening. Not just to me, but to what we've been building. This is bigger than I ever imagined." Anna's voice was filled with pride. "I always knew you'd make it. But more than that, Jake, you've changed lives. You're giving people a reason to believe in themselves again." Jake sat back in his chair, the weight of her words sinking in. He had built something that wasn't just about success, it was about community, healing, and hope. The journey wasn't easy, but it was worth it. Every step. Jake leaned back in his chair, looking out the window as the sun set over the city skyline. His phone buzzed on the table, signaling a message from Rachel. They'd just finished a successful week of online coaching, and things were starting to really take off. But Jake couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. It was a gnawing sensation in his gut, like he had taken a wrong turn and was only now realizing it. The ripple effect he had hoped for was finally happening, but the growth was so fast and so far-reaching that it was starting to feel overwhelming. The responses from his workshops, his online courses, and the medical community were all positive, and his clients were seeing real changes. But as his business grew, so did the pressure. The demands on his time, his energy, and his focus were becoming more challenging to manage. He clicked open Rachel's message, hoping it would offer some clarity. "Hey Jake, we've got another batch of new clients ready to start this week. Can we set up a meeting to discuss next steps? Things are getting busy, and I think we need to scale even faster if we want to keep up with demand." Jake read the message again. Rachel was right. The demand for their services was growing exponentially, but he hadn't anticipated how quickly it would all unfold. He had always dreamed of helping as many people as possible, but now, he found himself at a crossroads. How could he maintain the personal connection he had built with each individual while also scaling the business? He didn't want to lose the intimate touch that had made his work so impactful in the first place. The next day, Jake met with Rachel and Anna to discuss how they could keep up with the growing demands without sacrificing the quality of the service they provided. Anna, ever the voice of reason, had been quietly observing the situation, and she knew that Jake was struggling with the idea of scaling. "You've built something incredible here, Jake," Anna said, gently setting down her coffee mug. "But you're right, you can't do it all. The people who are following you, learning from you, and trusting you, they need your leadership, your expertise. But the bigger you get, the more you'll need help. You can't do this alone anymore." Jake sighed. "I know. But it feels like I'm losing touch with why I started this in the first place. I wanted to help people, but now it feels like I'm just managing a business." Rachel nodded thoughtfully. "It's a common struggle for people who want to make a real difference. The key is to find a balance between being the face of your mission and finding others who can carry the torch with you. You need a team, people who can share your vision and your passion for helping others." Jake looked at Rachel, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to the storm of thoughts swirling in his mind. "So what are you saying? We need to hire more people?" Rachel smiled. "Exactly. Start building a team that can help you scale, but make sure they're aligned with your mission. They should be as invested in this vision as you are." That conversation stuck with Jake long after he left their meeting. He had always prided himself on doing everything himself, but it was clear that the time had come to let go of some of that control. As much as he wanted to keep everything personal and hands-on, he knew that he couldn't be in every workshop, every coaching session, and every client call. It wasn't sustainable. Over the next few weeks, Jake began assembling a small but passionate team. He hired a project manager to handle logistics, a content creator to help with social media and course materials, and an additional coach to help run group sessions. It was a difficult decision to make, but it was the right one. The team he built was dedicated to the same cause, helping people break free from chronic pain and live their best lives. With this new team in place, Jake could focus on his strengths: creating content, working one-on-one with clients, and continuing to build relationships with experts in the health and wellness field. His team handled everything else, giving him the time and space to refine his offerings and continue to innovate. Then came another unexpected opportunity. Dr. Ford, who had become more than just a collaborator, reached out again with some exciting news. The paper they had written about Jake's transformation was not only being published but also being presented at an international conference on pain management. It was a huge step forward. The visibility Jake was getting in the medical community was increasing exponentially, and with that came more opportunities to connect with researchers, doctors, and potential partners in the health and wellness space. Dr. Ford's email was full of enthusiasm. "Jake, I wanted to let you know that our paper is being presented next month at the Global Pain Management Conference. It's a fantastic opportunity to showcase your journey to a wider audience. I'd like to invite you to join me at the event as a featured speaker. It's a big deal, and I think your story could help change the conversation around pain management." Jake's heart raced when he read the email. This was the moment he had been waiting for, a chance to reach an even broader audience, to show that healing was possible, and to spread his message beyond the confines of his current following. But with the invitation came a new set of challenges. Would he be able to prepare in time? Could he speak at such a high-level event without sounding out of place? The pressure was mounting. He turned to Anna that night for support. "I can't believe this is happening. But I'm terrified. What if I screw it up? What if I'm not enough?" Anna took a deep breath, offering him a steady look. "Jake, you've already done more than most people could ever dream of. You've helped so many people. Just keep being true to yourself. Speak from the heart, and the rest will follow. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be you." Jake felt the weight of her words settle on him. He had come this far by staying authentic, by sharing his journey with raw honesty. This was just the next step. It was an opportunity to spread his message even further. It wasn't about being flawless, it was about being genuine. The preparation for the conference was intense. Jake worked with his team to create a compelling presentation that would highlight his transformation, the science behind the plant-based approach, and the real-world results that people like him were experiencing. They also worked on building a brand new marketing campaign around the upcoming event, with a focus on spreading awareness about the potential for plant-based diets to alleviate chronic pain. The closer the event came, the more Jake felt the weight of responsibility. But he knew this was a pivotal moment for his business, for his mission, and for the thousands of people who were waiting for answers. His story wasn't just about him anymore, it was about the people who believed in him, who trusted him, and who were looking for hope. The day of the conference arrived, and Jake stood backstage, his heart pounding in his chest. This was the culmination of everything he had worked for. The world was about to hear his story, and he was ready. As he stepped out onto the stage, the lights blinded him for a moment, but he quickly adjusted. The audience was packed, doctors, researchers, healthcare professionals, and advocates who were eager to learn about alternative methods for managing pain. Jake took a deep breath, then began. "I'm here today not just to tell you my story, but to show you that healing is possible. It doesn't have to be about endless medications or painkillers. It can be about food, it can be about lifestyle changes, and it can be about hope." As Jake spoke, he could see the audience leaning in, listening intently. For the first time, he didn't feel out of place. He wasn't just some guy who had overcome arthritis. He was someone with a message that could change lives. And the ripple effect he had started was only just beginning. The applause still echoed in Jake's ears as he stepped off the stage. He had just delivered his talk at the Global Pain Management Conference, and the energy in the room had been palpable. Doctors, researchers, and wellness experts were now aware of his work, and the connections he had made that day were invaluable. But as the adrenaline from the conference buzz wore off, reality set back in. Jake sat alone in a quiet corner of the conference hall, a cup of coffee in hand, staring out at the bustling crowd. His phone buzzed with notifications. Messages from clients, social media comments, emails from potential partners. The feedback from his presentation was overwhelmingly positive, but there was something else too. There was a new weight on his shoulders. The world was watching now, and with it came a new level of pressure. It was clear that his mission was reaching a global scale. But with that global reach came the question, how would he handle it all? He had always believed in the power of one-on-one connections, but now, that approach was starting to feel impossible to sustain. He couldn't be everywhere at once. He couldn't coach every person or attend every event. The idea of scaling, really scaling, was starting to become less of an exciting opportunity and more of a daunting task. As Jake flew home from the conference, his mind raced. What was next? His heart still beat for the one-on-one coaching sessions, the personal connections, the transformation stories. But there was no denying it, the growth was too big for him to manage alone. The team he had built was a good start, but they needed more. More resources, more expertise, more infrastructure. When Jake returned home, he took a few days to reflect. He had built something incredible, a community of people eager to learn, grow, and heal. But how could he continue to serve them while also stepping into this new, larger role that was opening up for him? What did the future look like for someone like him, who was driven by passion but now faced with the logistics of running a rapidly growing business? A week later, Jake met with his team to discuss what he had been mulling over. Sitting around the table were Rachel, Anna, and their newest team member, Theo, a marketing strategist who had been brought on to handle the brand's expansion. "We're at a crossroads," Jake began, his voice steady but filled with a sense of urgency. "The demand for what we're offering is growing faster than we can handle. I'm trying to figure out how we can scale without losing what makes us special, our personal touch, our authenticity." Rachel leaned forward, her eyes sharp. "Jake, you're not alone in this. We've built a foundation, and now it's time to build on it. We need systems, but we also need to keep the soul of the business intact. Let's not lose sight of why we started this. But we also have to be strategic. We need to expand our reach, and that means getting more people on board, people who align with our mission and can help carry this forward." Anna added, "The team we've put together so far is great, but we might need to bring in experts in certain areas, nutritionists, fitness trainers, possibly even other coaches who can lead smaller groups. This can't all fall on you, Jake. You need to focus on being the leader and visionary, not the one who does everything." Theo, the marketing strategist, nodded. "I agree. From a marketing perspective, the way forward is clear. You've got to create a system that allows you to reach more people while keeping the integrity of the message intact. We need to streamline the delivery, expand your online courses, build an app, and focus more on partnerships with health professionals." Jake took it all in. "So, what I'm hearing is that we need to build an infrastructure that allows us to serve more people without losing the personal connection. We need to grow, but thoughtfully. And we need to bring in the right people to help us do that." The plan they developed that day became the blueprint for the next phase of Jake's business. It wasn't just about expanding quickly, it was about expanding wisely. They would streamline their course delivery, build more resources for clients to use on their own time, and develop a network of like-minded professionals to support the program. They also began the process of creating an app that would give clients access to daily health tips, meal plans, exercise routines, and a community of people going through the same journey. This app would be the heart of Jake's brand, offering personalized support without the need for constant one-on-one interaction. As the weeks passed, the team worked tirelessly to bring these plans to life. Jake found himself leading the charge, but with Rachel, Anna, Theo, and the rest of the team by his side, he felt more supported than ever. The vision they had for the future was starting to take shape in real time. One of the most exciting developments was the launch of a new mentorship program. Jake realized that there were so many people who were eager to follow in his footsteps, to help others with their health journeys and to build their own businesses. The program would offer coaching, resources, and support for budding health coaches, allowing them to integrate plant-based diets and holistic health principles into their work. This would not only allow Jake to reach more people but also empower others to do the same. But with growth came new challenges. One evening, as Jake was reviewing the latest batch of client feedback, he came across something unsettling. A client had written in, expressing frustration with how the online courses were being delivered. The system was feeling overwhelming, and the personalized touch that Jake's coaching had been known for seemed to be getting lost. Jake knew that their expansion was necessary, but he didn't want to lose sight of what had made their program so effective in the first place. The question now wasn't just how to grow, it was how to grow in a way that preserved the heart of the business. Jake called an emergency meeting with his team the next day. "I've been hearing concerns from clients about the new structure. I'm worried that we're losing the personal connection. How do we scale without losing what we're known for?" Rachel nodded thoughtfully. "Jake, this is going to be a delicate balance. The personal touch is what sets you apart, but the platform we've created has the potential to help so many more people. The key is going to be offering both. We need to maintain the intimacy of your coaching, while also providing a system that's scalable. Anna added, maybe it's time to offer different levels of service. We could have a tiered program, something that offers one-on-one coaching for those who need it, while also allowing others to benefit from the content you've created in a more self-paced way. We can also introduce group coaching calls where you still get to interact with people, but on a broader scale. Theo chimed in, and don't forget about automating certain parts of the process. Things like meal planning, exercise regimens, and some of the content delivery can be automated, so you're not having to be involved in every step. That way, you still have the time to do what you're best at. Connecting with people and leading the charge. It was a challenging balancing act, but Jake knew they were on the right track. As they began to fine-tune the new systems, the team worked harder than ever to make sure the human touch was never lost, even as they streamlined and expanded. As the months passed, Jake saw his vision materialize in ways he hadn't thought possible. His program was touching more lives than ever before. Clients were experiencing profound transformations, and his mentorship program was creating a new wave of health coaches who were spreading his message around the world. Jake's influence was expanding, but so was his sense of responsibility. With every new client, every new partnership, every new mentor, came the knowledge that his mission was much bigger than he had ever imagined. This wasn't just about him anymore, it was about a global movement, a wave of change in how people thought about pain, health, and healing. Jake took a deep breath as he reflected on the journey so far. He had come a long way from the man who could barely walk, and yet, in some ways, he felt like he was just beginning. The morning after the launch of the new mentorship program, Jake sat at his desk, reviewing the numbers. His heart swelled with pride as he saw the growing number of sign-ups for both the program and his courses. But as successful as the launch had been, Jake knew that the next phase of his journey would require more than just numbers on a screen. It would require something much more vital, the strength of his community. He had always believed in the power of connection, but now, it wasn't just his personal coaching that was making a difference, it was the community that had formed around his brand. A network of individuals, each on their own health journeys, but all bound by the same core principles. The sense of support and camaraderie was palpable, both online and in person. That afternoon, Jake logged into his private online group. The community, made up of thousands of people, was buzzing with activity. Every day, members shared their stories, offered advice, and supported each other through their challenges. Jake had been part of many online groups in his life, but none had ever felt this alive, this connected. As he scrolled through the posts, one in particular caught his eye. It was from Emily, a woman who had been part of Jake's program for several months. "Hey, everyone," Emily's post began. "I just wanted to share my story. I've been battling arthritis for years, and after years of trying different treatments, I thought I'd never find a solution. But then I found Jake's program. I started with small changes, swapping out processed foods for plant-based meals, doing the exercises, and following the mindset tips. I can't believe it, but for the first time in years, I'm pain-free. My joints feel like they've been given a new lease on life. I'm so grateful to be part of this community. It's not just the program, it's the support from everyone here that's kept me going." Jake smiled to himself as he read her words. This was why he had started all of this. Emily's story was one of many. It wasn't just the information that was making a difference, it was the encouragement, the accountability, and the belief that they were all in this together. He decided to respond. "Emily, your story brings me so much joy. You've put in the hard work, and it's inspiring to see how far you've come. And you're right. The power of this community is immeasurable. You're not alone on this journey, and it's amazing to see everyone lifting each other up." That evening, Jake held his weekly live Q&A session for his clients. This had become one of his favorite parts of the week, as it allowed him to interact directly with people from all over the world. He wasn't just answering questions about diet or exercise, he was offering advice on how to navigate the mental and emotional aspects of healing. Jake, a client named Greg, asked during the session, "I've been following the program for a couple of months now, but I'm still struggling with consistency. I know I feel better when I stick to the plan, but life keeps getting in the way. How do you stay motivated when the distractions of daily life start to take over?" Jake thought for a moment. He had been there himself, feeling the pull of distractions, the temptation to slip back into old habits, the pressure of everyday stress. "It's all about finding your why, Greg," Jake said. "When the challenges come, it's easy to lose sight of why you started. For me, it was about not living in constant pain. For you, it might be about being able to play with your kids without hurting afterward, or being able to go on a hike without fear of swelling. Find that reason that drives you, and when life gets in the way, use that to push you forward." Jake could see the change in Greg's eyes as he nodded. It wasn't just the advice, it was the way Jake spoke from experience, the way he shared his own struggles and triumphs. That connection, that honesty, was what made Jake's community so powerful. The following week, Jake attended a virtual conference on wellness and chronic pain. It was an opportunity for him to connect with other thought leaders in the industry and continue building relationships with health professionals. He had grown accustomed to speaking in front of crowds, but this was different. It wasn't just about spreading his message. It was about continuing the work that would help shape the future of chronic pain management. As he spoke to an audience of doctors, wellness practitioners, and researchers, Jake made a point to emphasize something that had become central to his work: the importance of community. "In my experience, the best healing happens when people don't feel alone," Jake told the audience. "That's why I've built my program around not just the knowledge, but the community. It's one thing to follow a program, it's another to have a group of people cheering you on, sharing their struggles, and offering advice when you need it. That's where real change happens." After the conference, Jake received a message from Dr. Ford. The email subject read, "Let's talk about the future." Jake opened it quickly, eager to hear what Dr. Ford had to say. The email outlined a proposal for a new collaborative project. A research study on the effects of plant-based diets and holistic practices on chronic pain management. Dr. Ford was excited about the potential to publish new findings, and he wanted Jake's program to be at the center of the study. Jake's heart skipped a beat. This was an opportunity to bring scientific validation to the work he had been doing. To prove, with data, that plant-based diets and holistic practices could change lives. The research study could have huge implications for the health and wellness industry. It was a chance to make an even bigger impact. He immediately set up a call with Dr. Ford to discuss the details. During the call, Jake felt a wave of excitement. Dr. Ford's expertise combined with Jake's real-world experience would create something groundbreaking. As they discussed the potential scope of the study, Jake realized just how much his community would be able to contribute. He could use the stories of the people who had transformed their lives through his program as case studies. They were living proof of the power of the plant-based lifestyle and holistic health. "This is incredible, Dr. Ford," Jake said, his mind racing with possibilities. "I've always believed in the power of community, and now we have the chance to show the world what's possible. This study could change everything." Dr. Ford agreed. "It's a game changer. But we'll need the support of the community to make this work. The more people we can involve in the study, the stronger our results will be." As Jake hung up the phone, he felt a surge of energy. The community he had built was not just an audience, it was an active part of the solution. He was no longer just helping people individually, he was helping shape a global movement. The study was the next step in a larger mission, one that would push the boundaries of what was possible in pain management. That evening, Jake sent a message to his community, sharing the news of the upcoming research study. The response was immediate and overwhelming. People from all over the world were excited to participate, to be a part of something that could change the way the world viewed chronic pain. As Jake looked at the flood of responses, he realized something. The true power of his work wasn't just in the program, the diet, or even the science, it was in the people who had come together to make it all happen. His community wasn't just following him, they were building this movement together. In that moment, Jake knew that the future of chronic pain management was not just in his hands. It was in the hands of everyone who had been touched by his work, the doctors, the coaches, the clients, the researchers, and the people who simply believed in the possibility of change. They were all part of this, together. It had been 3 months since Jake and Dr. Ford had officially launched the research study, and while the excitement still buzzed through the air, the reality of running a large-scale clinical trial was beginning to settle in. The study wasn't just about numbers or data, it was about real people, each with their own story, their own pain, and their own hopes for relief. And each participant, from every corner of the globe, had placed their trust in Jake's program. Jake had always prided himself on the personal connections he'd built with his clients, but now, as the study expanded and involved hundreds of participants, he was finding it more challenging to keep the personal touch that had made his brand so successful. The emails, messages, and feedback were coming in faster than ever, and the pressure to meet expectations was starting to build. As he sat in his office one morning, reviewing a new batch of data, Jake felt the weight of responsibility. This wasn't just his success on the line, this was the success of the thousands of people who had placed their faith in his program, and by extension, in him. The stakes had never been higher. The next day, Jake sat in a virtual meeting with Dr. Ford, the research team, and the key members of his staff. The topic of discussion was the current progress of the study and the challenges they were facing. Jake had been thrilled when the study had begun, but now, as they dug deeper into the data, the initial enthusiasm had started to wane. The results weren't coming in as consistently as they had hoped. Some participants were experiencing significant improvements, while others were seeing little or no change. Dr. Ford, as always, was calm and methodical. The data we're collecting is valuable, but there are some inconsistencies, he said, scanning through his notes. Some participants are showing incredible improvements, particularly in joint pain reduction and mobility. Others, however, are not seeing the same results. We need to dive deeper into why that is. Jake leaned forward. I've been thinking the same thing. It's frustrating to see these disparities, but we have to remember that this is a long-term journey for these people. It's not just about a quick fix, it's about changing their lifestyles, changing their mentalities. But the inconsistencies are troubling. How do we tackle them? Dr. Ford nodded thoughtfully. That's a good point. We're dealing with a diverse group of people with different backgrounds, habits, and genetics. I think we need to personalize the approach even more. Perhaps the program's flexibility needs to be fine-tuned for different types of participants. Some might need more emotional support, while others need stricter dietary guidance. There's no one-size-fits-all solution here. Rachel, who had been listening intently, added, Jake, what if we created more ways for participants to connect with each other? It seems like the community aspect is really what keeps people engaged and motivated. Maybe fostering even more interaction between them could lead to better results. Jake's face lit up as Rachel spoke. I love that idea. Let's make community even more central to the program. We can set up weekly group sessions for participants to share their experiences, discuss challenges, and celebrate victories together. Not just in a forum, but in real-time conversations. People need to feel like they're not alone on this journey. If they're not seeing results right away, the community can be the encouragement they need to keep going. As the groups began to form, Jake noticed a shift in the energy. Participants were more engaged, more motivated, and more connected to one another. Stories of success started to flood in again, and while not every participant was experiencing the same level of improvement, the majority were seeing significant benefits. The group dynamic was creating a new sense of accountability and a shared sense of purpose. However, despite the encouraging progress, Jake knew that they hadn't yet overcome all the hurdles. The disparity in results still loomed large, and he couldn't shake the nagging feeling that there was something deeper at play. It wasn't just about diet and exercise, it was about something more. One night, after a particularly long day of reviewing data and answering messages, Jake sat alone in his office, looking at the numbers. He'd been so caught up in the logistics of scaling his business, keeping the community engaged, and managing the research study, that he had forgotten why he started this journey in the first place. Jake had once been in pain every day of his life. He had once been told that he would never walk without pain again. He knew firsthand what it felt like to lose hope, to feel isolated, to think that nothing would ever work. His entire program, his entire mission, had been built around the idea that no one should have to feel that way. The community wasn't just about support, it was about healing together. It was about providing hope when everything else seemed hopeless. Jake closed his laptop and leaned back in his chair. He needed to refocus. It wasn't just about the research results, it was about the human aspect of this journey. The transformation that his program sparked wasn't just physical, it was emotional and mental. And that was the barrier they needed to break. The next morning, Jake called a meeting with his core team. "We've been focused on the wrong thing," he said, his voice steady but filled with conviction. "We've been so focused on the numbers and the science that we've lost sight of the heart of this program. Yes, we want results. Yes, we want proof. But we can't forget that this is a human experience. People are coming to us because they're in pain. They're desperate for a solution, but they also need compassion. They need hope." Rachel nodded. "We've created an incredible program, but you're right. The emotional side of healing is just as important as the physical. We need to bring that back into focus." Jake smiled, grateful for his team's understanding. "Let's do this together. We'll use the data we've collected to fine-tune the program, but we'll also make sure that we're always putting the people first. This isn't just about what's on paper, it's about what's in their hearts." The changes they implemented made a profound difference. The focus groups became spaces of not just education, but genuine emotional connection. Stories of pain and healing were shared openly, and participants felt that they were part of something much bigger than themselves. It wasn't just about the program, it was about being part of a collective mission to heal. And as the results began to improve again, Jake knew that they had crossed an important threshold. They were no longer just working to alleviate pain, they were working to break the barriers that kept people from truly believing that healing was possible. It wasn't just a program anymore. It was a movement. The weeks following the breakthrough in the research study were some of the most intense Jake had experienced in his career. Not only was the study moving forward with more promising results, but there was a sense of momentum in the air that Jake hadn't felt before. The community was thriving, and his clients were beginning to feel a sense of transformation, both physically and emotionally. But amidst this newfound success, something new was on the horizon. It all started with an email from a company named Healthco, a prominent wellness brand that had been in the industry for years. Jake had heard of them before. They were known for their high-quality supplements, fitness equipment, and educational resources for people dealing with chronic health conditions. What caught Jake's attention was the subject line, a potential partnership opportunity. He sat at his desk, staring at the subject line for a few moments before opening the email. Inside, the message was brief but impactful. "Dear Jake, we've been following your work for some time, and we are extremely impressed with what you've built with your program. Your approach to holistic health, especially your focus on plant-based nutrition and community support, resonates with us deeply. We believe that together, we could create something even greater. Healthco is interested in discussing a potential partnership to bring your program to a larger audience. We'd love to explore how we can collaborate, combining your expertise with our resources to make a more significant impact on the chronic pain community. Please let us know if you're open to a conversation. We look forward to hearing from you. Best regards. Sarah Johnson, Director of Partnerships, Healthco." Jake read the email twice, letting the words sink in. A partnership with a company like Healthco was an enormous opportunity, but it also came with its own set of challenges. He'd always prided himself on maintaining control over his message, his program, and the community he had built. The thought of partnering with a large corporation felt like stepping into unknown territory. Yet, as he sat there, staring at the email, he realized that this could be the very thing that would allow him to reach even more people, the very people who were still suffering in silence, who didn't know that a solution existed. The opportunity to bring his program to a larger stage could have an exponential impact. He decided to take the leap. A week later, Jake sat in a virtual meeting with Sarah Johnson, the director of partnerships at HealthCo. The conversation started with pleasantries, but it didn't take long for the real discussion to begin. "We've been really impressed with the results your program has shown so far," Sarah said, her tone warm but professional. "We believe your program could be a natural fit for our audience, and we think we could provide the resources to help scale it." Jake nodded, trying to keep his excitement in check. "I appreciate that. I've always believed that chronic pain management is about more than just physical symptoms, it's about community, mindset, and a holistic approach. My goal has always been to empower people, not just give them a program to follow." Sarah smiled. "That's exactly why we're interested in you. Our brand is built on empowering people to take control of their health, and we believe your message aligns perfectly with our values. What we're thinking is a collaborative effort. HealthCo has a huge platform, social media, email marketing, our website. If we can integrate your program into our offerings, we could introduce your work to millions of people who might not otherwise have access to it." Jake felt a surge of possibility at her words. This was exactly the kind of partnership he had hoped for, not one that would dilute his message or take control away from him, but one that would amplify his reach and allow him to continue doing what he loved, helping people. "But I have a few questions," Jake said, his voice steady. "I've worked hard to build a community that feels authentic and supportive. If we're going to work together, I want to make sure that this collaboration doesn't lose that personal touch." Sarah nodded thoughtfully. "That's a valid concern, Jake. We've worked with other brands that value community as much as you do, and we understand how important it is to keep that connection. Our plan isn't just to sell a product, it's to create real value for the people who join your program. We're committed to ensuring that the community aspect remains central to everything we do together." Over the next few weeks, Jake and Sarah worked together to lay the foundation for their partnership. They discussed everything from content creation and marketing strategies to the logistics of scaling the program. As they ironed out the details, Jake felt more and more confident that this collaboration could work. HealthCo understood the value of what he was offering, and they were committed to maintaining the integrity of his message. But there was one crucial factor Jake hadn't anticipated: the growing tension within his own team. Rachel, his right-hand woman, had been increasingly quiet during the meetings about the partnership. While she understood the potential, Jake could tell she was struggling with the idea of handing over part of the program to a corporation. He had always valued her opinion, and he knew this wasn't something she was taking lightly. One evening, as the two of them sat in his office going over plans for the upcoming month, Rachel finally spoke up. "Jake, I know this partnership with HealthCo has a lot of potential, but I have to be honest with you," she said, her voice serious. "I'm worried about what this could mean for the community. I get that we could reach more people, but I don't want us to lose what we've built. We've always been about authenticity, about real people, real connections. I'm just afraid that partnering with a big company might change that." Jake leaned back in his chair, listening carefully. He knew Rachel had been a driving force behind the success of the program, and her concerns were valid. The last thing he wanted was to compromise the integrity of the work they had all built together. "I hear you, Rachel," he said, his tone soft but firm. "This partnership isn't about changing who we are, it's about reaching more people without losing what makes us special. I want to make sure we maintain the personal touch, the authenticity. HealthCo understands that, and I'm going to make sure we don't sacrifice any of it." Rachel nodded slowly. "I hope you're right. I trust you, Jake. Just, don't lose sight of what's made us different." Jake took Rachel's words to heart. As the partnership with HealthCo progressed, he made sure to remain involved in every aspect of the program's evolution. He continued to engage with his community personally, hosting live sessions and Q&As, while also working with HealthCo to ensure that the message remained aligned with his core values. The collaboration would allow Jake to continue his work at a larger scale, without compromising the very principles that had gotten him this far. A few months later, the partnership launched to great success. The program, now available to a much broader audience through HealthCo's platform, began to change lives on a much larger scale. Testimonials flooded in from participants who had never heard of Jake's program before, but who now felt connected to something larger than themselves. Jake knew this was just the beginning. There would be more challenges, more growing pains, but there would also be more breakthroughs, more lives touched, and more barriers broken. Together, with his team and his community, he was stepping into a new horizon. The success of the partnership with HealthCo was undeniable. Jake's program was reaching new heights, and the number of people signing up for his holistic arthritis relief plan was growing exponentially. Testimonials poured in daily, and the program's social media presence was stronger than ever. His inbox was filled with messages of gratitude from participants who were experiencing real changes in their lives. Yet, amidst the overwhelming success, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The expansion had brought an unexpected side effect, a growing sense of distance between him and the very community he had built from the ground up. With the surge in numbers, it became increasingly difficult to maintain the personal connections that had been the foundation of his program. His inbox was full, his schedule was overflowing, and even his team was feeling the pressure. The personal touch that had once been a hallmark of the program was starting to slip through the cracks. Jake sat in his office one evening, staring at the computer screen. He was reviewing the latest feedback from participants, stories of pain relief, regained mobility, and renewed hope. But the more he read, the more he felt a gnawing sense of unease. The stories were inspiring, but there was one thing missing, the authenticity that had always made his program so unique. He picked up his phone and called Rachel, his trusted ally and the person who had been by his side since the beginning. "Rachel, I need to talk to you," Jake said, his voice tinged with frustration. "I'm reading these amazing success stories, but it feels like we're losing something important. I can't put my finger on it, but it feels like we're getting further away from the core of what we started." Rachel's voice was calm, but Jake could hear the concern in her tone. "I get what you're saying, Jake. The program has grown, and with that growth comes the challenge of maintaining that personal connection. But you can't do everything yourself. You've built an incredible team, and they're more than capable of keeping the program running smoothly." Jake sighed. "I know, but it's not just about logistics. It's about the heart of the program. People don't just want the results, they want to feel like they're part of something. They want to know that they're not alone in this. And with all the new sign-ups and the corporate partnership, it feels like we're losing that." Rachel was silent for a moment before responding. "I've been feeling it too, Jake. I think we need to refocus on the community aspect. Let's go back to the roots. What if we implemented a system where people could connect more directly with you and each other? Maybe smaller group sessions, or even one-on-one calls. It'll take time, but it's worth it." Jake's eyes lit up. "That's exactly what we need. We can't lose sight of the people who helped us get here. We'll build a new system where people can engage in a deeper, more personal way. We'll bring the community back into the heart of the program." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of changes. Jake and Rachel worked tirelessly to design a new approach that would keep the sense of community alive. They created smaller, more intimate virtual groups where participants could interact directly with Jake and the team. These groups would be based on shared challenges, such as specific joint pain areas or personal experiences with dietary changes. Additionally, Jake began holding more frequent live sessions, where he could directly address participants' concerns and answer their questions in real time. At first, it felt like an uphill battle. The scale of the program was vast, and Jake's time was limited. But as he began connecting more with the participants in these small group settings, he felt something shift. The faces on the screen weren't just names in a database, they were real people, struggling, hoping, and transforming. It reminded him of why he had started this journey in the first place. One evening, after a particularly moving live session where he had spoken to a woman named Carol who had been in chronic pain for over 20 years, Jake felt a renewed sense of purpose. Carol had shared her emotional journey, from feeling hopeless to finally experiencing relief after following the program's guidelines. Her story was just one of many, but it had struck a chord with Jake. It was a reminder that, for each person, the journey was personal. And he was a part of that journey. However, even as the personal connection began to grow stronger, the expansion of the program continued to present challenges. One of the biggest hurdles came in the form of participant expectations. With more people signing up, the diversity of needs and experiences became more apparent. While some participants were thriving, others were struggling to keep up with the program's demands, particularly when it came to the dietary recommendations. Jake received an email one morning from a participant named Mark, who had been with the program for several months. Mark's email was filled with frustration, expressing that despite his best efforts, he wasn't seeing the same results as others. He had been following the plant-based guidelines to the letter, but his pain hadn't improved in the way he had hoped. Jake took a deep breath before replying. He knew that everyone's journey was different, and while the program was based on sound principles, it was crucial to acknowledge the individual variations in each person's health. After carefully crafting his response, Jake sent the email back to Mark, explaining that while the program had helped many, it wasn't a one-size-fits-all solution. He also suggested that Mark consider making adjustments to his plan and shared some additional resources that might help. But even as he responded with care and empathy, Jake realized that Mark's situation wasn't unique. There were other participants who were facing similar challenges, and the success stories didn't always paint the full picture. The reality was that healing wasn't linear, and the path to relief was often filled with setbacks, doubts, and frustration. Jake knew that they needed to continue refining the program, but there was something else he had to address: the expectations surrounding the partnership with HealthCo. While the partnership had provided significant resources, there was pressure to deliver even faster results. This pressure was starting to bleed into the messaging surrounding the program, and Jake was worried that the focus was shifting too much toward quick fixes rather than the long-term, sustainable lifestyle changes he had always advocated. He called another meeting with Sarah Johnson from HealthCo. As always, Sarah was enthusiastic about the program's growth, but Jake could tell that she was also pushing for faster results. "Jake, we're seeing great numbers, but we want to ensure that we're capitalizing on the momentum," Sarah said. "We're thinking about ramping up the marketing, focusing on more aggressive outreach, and maybe even offering a quick start version of the program for people who need faster results." Jake felt a knot form in his stomach. "Sarah, I understand the desire to capitalize on the momentum, but the heart of this program is about long-term change. It's about people making lasting improvements to their lives, not just getting a quick fix. I'm afraid that focusing too much on speed might undermine everything we've worked for." Sarah paused, then sighed. "I hear you, Jake. I really do. But there's a balance we have to find. People want results, and they want them now. We have to meet them where they are, even if that means adjusting our approach a little." As Jake ended the call, he knew that the path forward wouldn't be easy. The ripple effect of their success had reached far beyond what he had anticipated, and with it came new challenges. The question now was how to balance the desire for rapid growth with the core values that had made his program so impactful. He knew that this was a critical moment. His ability to navigate these challenges would determine not only the future of his program but also the future of his community. As he sat back in his chair, Jake reminded himself that the journey wasn't just about the destination. It was about staying true to the mission, even when the waters of success became turbulent. Jake had always been a steady hand on the wheel, guiding his program through the stormy seas of uncertainty. But now, as the program expanded into new territories, He felt like he was navigating waters that were deeper, choppier, and far more unpredictable than he had ever anticipated. With HealthCo's push for faster growth and the mounting expectations from participants, Jake found himself pulled in every direction. The tension was palpable. Each day, Jake woke up to a flood of emails, some filled with gratitude, others with frustration. People were experiencing incredible progress, while others were struggling to find relief. Some praised the program for changing their lives, while others voiced dissatisfaction when results didn't come as quickly as promised. He couldn't help but wonder, was he losing control of the narrative? Had the message of holistic, sustainable healing been overshadowed by the pressure to scale? The thought weighed heavily on his mind as he sat in his office, reviewing the latest marketing materials HealthCo had proposed. They were eager to roll out a series of quick start programs designed for individuals seeking immediate results. Just 3 weeks to pain relief, the banner screamed. The promise felt far too polished, too easy, compared to the careful, gradual progress Jake had always advocated for. Rachel had noticed the growing strain on him. She saw it in his eyes, the exhaustion from juggling the partnership's demands with his passion for the program's integrity. She sat across from him one evening as he reviewed the materials again, her voice gentle but firm. "Jake," Rachel began, her eyes searching his face for any sign of relief, "I know this partnership with HealthCo has been great for us in a lot of ways, but I think we need to take a step back and think about where we're headed." Jake looked up from the laptop, meeting her gaze. "I know, Rachel. I'm just not sure where the balance is anymore. HealthCo wants quick results, but I know that's not what we stand for. I built this program on the belief that change takes time, that healing isn't instant. But right now, it feels like we're trying to cater to something that isn't us." Rachel nodded thoughtfully. "I get it. But we've come this far because we believed in the process, right? It's not about selling a quick fix, it's about building something that works. And the people who stick with us will get the long-term benefits. We can't lose sight of that." Jake took a deep breath, letting her words sink in. "You're right. But the more I think about it, the more I realize that we need to stay true to what we've always done, listening to our community, giving them what they need, and letting them grow at their own pace." They both fell silent for a moment, the weight of the decision hanging in the air. Jake knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. The growing demands of the partnership with HealthCo were pushing him to make choices he wasn't entirely comfortable with, but at the end of the day, it was his responsibility to ensure the program remained authentic. The journey of healing was not one size fits all, and he couldn't allow that to be lost in the noise of corporate interests. The next day, Jake made a decision. He would take control of the narrative. He would meet with Sarah Johnson from HealthCo to discuss a new direction, one that aligned more closely with the core values of his program. The meeting with Sarah was set for the afternoon. Jake felt a mixture of anticipation and apprehension as he prepared to address the concerns that had been brewing inside him. When he finally sat down with Sarah, he didn't waste any time. "Sarah, I appreciate everything HealthCo has done to support the growth of the program," Jake began, his voice steady but firm. "But we need to have a serious conversation about where we're headed. The quick start programs, the pressure for fast results, it's not in line with what we stand for. We've always focused on long-term healing and sustainable lifestyle changes, not quick fixes." Sarah listened carefully, nodding as he spoke. "Jake, I hear you. I know your values are important to you, and they've certainly been a big part of why we've partnered in the first place. But we're dealing with a massive market, and people want results now. They're looking for immediate relief." "I understand that," Jake responded, his tone calm but unwavering. "But the reality is that long-term healing doesn't happen overnight. People need to understand that this is a journey, not a race. If we promise instant results, we risk setting them up for disappointment. And that's something I won't be a part of." Sarah's expression softened. "I get it, Jake. You've built something incredible here, and we don't want to undermine that. But there's a middle ground we can find. What if we focus on education instead of quick fixes? Let's frame the message around long-term health, but with tangible milestones along the way. We can still show people the progress they can make in the first few weeks, but emphasize that true healing is a process. Jake considered her words. The idea of offering clear milestones was something he could get behind. It wasn't about promising instant relief, but it was about showing people that the program could lead to meaningful improvements, even in the short term, without giving the impression of a quick fix. I think that could work, Jake said, his voice gaining confidence. Let's find a way to communicate the process in a way that empowers people without misleading them. I want them to see the results that come from consistency, from staying committed to the long-term changes we're advocating. Sarah smiled, relieved. I'm glad we're on the same page. Let's work on the messaging and make sure it aligns with your vision. We can still reach a large audience without compromising what you've built. Over the next few weeks, Jake and Sarah worked closely to refine the messaging. They created a new campaign that focused on educating participants about the holistic nature of healing, plant-based nutrition, movement, mindset, and community support. Instead of promoting quick results, they emphasized small victories along the way, with testimonials and success stories that showed progress over time. The goal was to create a narrative that balanced the immediate benefits of the program with the long-term commitment required for true healing. As they rolled out the new campaign, Jake felt a sense of relief. The pressure to deliver instant results had been replaced with a more sustainable approach, one that not only respected the process but also honored the individuals who were part of the journey. The feedback came in fast and furious. People were responding to the new messaging, feeling inspired by the realistic expectations and the focus on long-term wellness. The community felt stronger than ever, and the program continued to grow, but now, it felt like the right kind of growth. It was authentic, grounded, and true to the original mission. As Jake sat back in his office, reflecting on the journey, he realized that the challenges they had faced were not obstacles, but opportunities for growth. The partnership with HealthCo had stretched him in ways he hadn't imagined, but it had also reaffirmed his belief in the program's core values. The road ahead would undoubtedly have its twists and turns, but Jake now felt more confident than ever that he could ride the waves of success while staying true to his mission, to help people heal, one step at a time. The weeks following the shift in messaging were a whirlwind of positive change. Jake's decision to steer the program back toward its roots, focusing on long-term wellness and the slow, steady journey of healing, was paying off. Not only did the new campaign resonate with participants, but it also strengthened the sense of community within the program. People were starting to view their progress not as a race to the finish line, but as a personal journey, one they could take at their own pace. Jake felt a renewed sense of purpose every time he saw a new testimonial or message from a participant. They were no longer just talking about the immediate relief they felt, they were speaking about the small, sustainable changes that were making a real difference in their lives. Stories of increased mobility, less pain, and newfound hope filled his inbox, and each message reminded him why he had started this journey in the first place. One email from a woman named Clara particularly stood out. She had been dealing with arthritis for years and had tried every treatment imaginable, from medications to alternative therapies, without finding much relief. But after following the program for 6 months, Clara had written to tell Jake that she was no longer dependent on painkillers. "I can walk my dog again without wincing every step," she wrote, "and I'm not just healing my body, I'm healing my mind too." Jake read the message twice, then smiled. It was moments like this that reminded him of the power of consistency. The slow, patient work of building health, through plant-based nutrition, mindful movement, and support from a community, was having a real impact on people's lives. Yet, even as Jake celebrated these victories, he knew that there were still obstacles ahead. The reality of scaling a program as large as his was far from easy, and he wasn't blind to the challenges that lay ahead. One such challenge came in the form of a growing tension between Jake's program and the demands of HealthCo. While the partnership had allowed Jake's vision to reach a broader audience, it was clear that HealthCo's primary focus remained on results, and fast results at that. In recent meetings, Jake had sensed that the company's leadership was beginning to push harder for more immediate, measurable outcomes. "We're seeing great engagement from your program, Jake," Sarah Johnson had said during one of their recent calls. "But the data is telling us that people want quicker results. We're talking about scaling this to thousands, even millions, of users. If we want to reach that level of growth, we need to focus on quicker, more tangible outcomes." Jake had heard this before, but the pressure now felt different. It was no longer about offering holistic wellness, it was about numbers. And that made him uneasy. While HealthCo's corporate goals were understandable, they weren't the same as his. His mission had always been to empower people to take control of their health, to heal in a way that was sustainable, not to provide a quick fix. Jake paused as he reflected on Sarah's words. Could they really find a way to scale without sacrificing the integrity of the program? He thought about Clara's message, about the deep, meaningful changes that took time and dedication. That's what this was about, the journey, not the destination. He called Rachel later that day to talk it through. "I'm worried, Rachel," Jake admitted. "HealthCo wants faster results, but I'm afraid we're heading into dangerous territory. I've always said this isn't a quick fix solution. If we start focusing too much on speed, we might lose what makes this program so special." Rachel was silent for a moment, processing the weight of what Jake had just said. "I know. It's a tricky situation. But remember, your program has always been about the long haul. You've built it that way for a reason. If we focus on giving people the tools to succeed in the long term, then that's the true victory." Jake nodded. "I agree. But I also need to find a way to communicate that to HealthCo. We can't just chase numbers for the sake of it." Jake decided to take a more proactive approach with HealthCo. Rather than just responding to their demands, he decided to show them the value of the long-term approach. He called another meeting with Sarah and her team, determined to present a solid case for the program's philosophy. When the meeting began, Jake didn't waste any time. "Sarah, I understand the pressure to deliver quick results, but I need to emphasize something. Our program isn't about a quick fix. It's about empowering people to make real, lasting changes. I know we're talking about scaling, but I believe the true success of this program lies in its long-term impact. The results we're seeing, people moving with less pain, living better lives, and reclaiming their health, are the result of consistent, gradual changes." Sarah nodded slowly, clearly absorbing his words. "I get what you're saying, Jake. But the reality is that we need to scale, and scaling means results. Fast results. If we want to attract more people, we need something that speaks to them right away." Jake took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "I think we need to show people that real change doesn't happen overnight. Yes, they'll feel improvements quickly, but true, lasting health is the result of consistent effort over time. We need to frame the message around patience, persistence, and small, achievable wins." There was a pause as Sarah considered his proposal. "That's a valid point. We could create a marketing campaign that emphasizes the benefits of the program in the short term, while still focusing on the long-term journey. We could present testimonials of people who've been on the program for a while, showing how their lives have transformed over time." Jake's heart lifted at the idea. "Exactly. Let's highlight the journey. People don't want just another quick fix solution, they want something that works. And what we're doing is about building a foundation for long-term wellness. If we communicate that clearly, we can still grow without compromising our values." The new direction was approved, and the next phase of the campaign was launched. It focused on the power of consistency, how sticking to the program, day after day, led to meaningful, lasting change. They created a series of testimonials from real participants who had experienced the cumulative benefits of sticking with the program. It wasn't about the immediate relief, it was about the enduring, life-changing results. As the campaign rolled out, Jake saw the impact. People responded positively to the messaging. They appreciated the honesty, the focus on realistic goals, and the understanding that healing took time. The program's community began to thrive again. The group sessions were full of participants who were excited not just about the results, but about the journey they were on together. They supported each other, sharing their triumphs and setbacks, their small victories and their struggles. And through it all, Jake remained committed to what had always driven him, empowering people to heal in a way that was sustainable, realistic, and meaningful. Sitting in his office late one evening, Jake reflected on the progress they had made. He had fought hard to maintain the integrity of the program, but he was beginning to see the fruits of that labor. The ripple effect of consistency was evident, and it was changing lives. For the first time in a while, Jake felt confident that they were on the right path. The road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but he knew that as long as he stayed true to his mission, the journey would be worth it. As the months passed, Jake's commitment to consistency continued to fuel the growth of the program. What had begun as a small initiative to help people manage their arthritis had transformed into a movement, one grounded in long-term wellness, sustainable healing, and the power of human connection. But Jake soon realized that the most powerful catalyst for change wasn't just the program's structure or the scientific principles behind it, it was the community that had formed around it. Every week, Jake received messages from participants sharing their stories, their struggles, and their triumphs. But the most powerful ones weren't the ones about physical transformations, they were about the emotional and psychological shifts that were happening as well. People weren't just finding relief from pain, they were rediscovering joy, connection, and a sense of purpose. Take Linda, for example. She had joined the program a year ago, skeptical about its ability to do anything for her chronic arthritis. She had tried every other treatment under the sun, steroids, anti-inflammatory drugs, even acupuncture, and nothing had provided lasting relief. But Linda found something different in Jake's program. It wasn't just the plant-based meals or the stretches she was learning. It was the community. Through the program's online forums, Linda had connected with a group of other women who were on similar journeys. They shared their frustrations, their small victories, and their advice. It was in these interactions that Linda felt a sense of belonging, a realization that she wasn't alone in her struggle. One day, Linda posted a message on the forum that struck Jake to the core. "I've been with the program for 6 months now," she wrote, "and I'm finally starting to feel like myself again. But what I've gained isn't just physical relief. It's the relationships I've built. I've found friends who understand me in a way that no one else does. I'm not just healing my body, I'm healing my heart." Jake read the post and smiled. It was a reminder that what they were creating was about more than just wellness, it was about fostering a sense of community, a safe space where people could share their stories and support each other through their journeys. That evening, Jake sat down with Rachel to discuss the program's growth. As they reviewed the latest data, it became clear that the program's success wasn't just about the results. It was about the support system they had built around it, the sense of community that encouraged people to keep going, even when the road was tough. "Look at these numbers," Jake said, pointing to the dashboard on his computer. "The engagement has skyrocketed. More people are joining the program, and even more importantly, they're sticking with it. And when I look at the comments and testimonials, they're not just talking about how much their pain has decreased. They're talking about the connections they've made, the friendships they've formed." Rachel nodded, smiling as she looked over the data. "I've noticed that too. It's like the program has become a support network as much as a wellness program. People are showing up for each other." Jake leaned back in his chair, taking it all in. "That's what makes this different. It's not just about physical health. It's about emotional health. It's about belonging. When people feel connected to something bigger than themselves, they're more likely to stay committed." In the following weeks, Jake began to see how the power of community was transforming the program's dynamic. The group sessions were more lively, with participants sharing their experiences, supporting one another, and celebrating each other's successes. Online forums were buzzing with activity, as people from all over the world exchanged tips, offered encouragement, and built genuine friendships. It was no longer just a program, it was a movement, a collective effort to heal, grow, and thrive together. Jake realized that this sense of community wasn't something that could be manufactured. It was an organic result of people coming together, sharing their struggles, and supporting each other through their challenges. The program had created a space where people could be vulnerable, where they could lean on one another when times were tough, and where they could celebrate even the smallest victories. One evening, as Jake scrolled through the program's community board, a post caught his eye. It was from a participant named Tom, who had been struggling with severe arthritis pain for years. Tom had shared his journey in the program, documenting his progress and the ways in which his body was healing. But it was his most recent post that moved Jake. "I've been on this program for nearly a year now," Tom wrote. "I still have days where the pain flares up, but I've learned to listen to my body and give it what it needs. I've also learned something else. I've learned that I'm not alone in this. I've made friends in this community who understand exactly what I'm going through. They've been there for me on the tough days, and we've celebrated together on the good days." Jake sat back, feeling a lump form in his throat. This, he thought, was the true power of what they had built. It wasn't just about the diet, the exercises, or the advice, it was about the people. The connections they had formed, the support they had given one another, was what made this program truly special. As Jake and Rachel continued to monitor the program's growth, they began to realize that this sense of community was becoming one of their strongest selling points. More and more people were reaching out not just for the physical benefits, but for the emotional support the program offered. Jake had always known that health was multifaceted, but now he saw it more clearly than ever. True healing wasn't just about what you put in your body or how you moved, it was about the relationships you built and the sense of purpose you found along the way. One day, Sarah from HealthCo called Jake with an update on their latest outreach efforts. "Jake, I think we've tapped into something really special here," she said, her voice excited. "We've been focusing on the community aspect in our marketing, and it's been a game changer. People are responding to the idea of being part of something bigger than themselves. They're not just buying into a program, they're joining a movement." Jake couldn't help but smile. This was the validation he needed. The message was getting out. The program wasn't just about achieving physical results, it was about finding a support system, building relationships, and creating lasting change together. "I'm glad to hear that," Jake replied. "We've always believed that healing is a journey that's better taken with others. The power of community is what sets this program apart. It's the heart of what we do." As Jake sat back that evening, reflecting on everything that had happened, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The program had grown far beyond what he had imagined when he first started. What had begun as a simple idea, helping people manage arthritis, had evolved into something much larger. It was a movement built on trust, support, and a shared vision for long-term health. The road ahead was still filled with challenges, but Jake knew one thing for certain: the strength of the program was not just in the content. It was in the community they had built together. And as long as that sense of connection remained strong, there was no limit to what they could achieve. As Jake's program continued to grow and thrive, he knew that the road ahead wouldn't be without obstacles. Success wasn't a straight line, it was a series of peaks and valleys, and each new milestone seemed to bring with it a new set of challenges. But as the weeks passed, Jake found himself facing an unexpected set of difficulties that tested his resolve and his commitment to the long-term vision of the program. One of the first signs of trouble came when a few high-profile participants began to drop out. These were people who had initially shown great promise, sharing their stories, inspiring others, and contributing to the program's growing success. But, as the months wore on, several of them had stopped posting in the community forums, missing group sessions, and eventually withdrew altogether. Jake had always known that not every participant would complete the program, but these were individuals who had seemed particularly engaged. Their exit was unsettling, especially since some of them had become informal leaders within the community. Their departure raised questions. Had the program stopped working for them? Or was there something else at play? Jake sat down with Rachel to talk it through. "We've had a few key people pull out of the program in the last couple of weeks," Jake said, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know why they're leaving, but I can't shake the feeling that we're missing something. We're reaching more people than ever, but are we really helping them in the long run?" Rachel listened carefully, her face thoughtful. "I've noticed that too. It's odd, because these were the same people who were so active before. I don't think it's about the program itself. Maybe it's about something else. Could it be burnout?" Jake frowned. "Burnout? You mean, from the program? I thought we were being careful to make sure people felt supported, that we weren't pushing them too hard." Rachel nodded. "That's true, but maybe some people are getting overwhelmed. We're asking them to make lasting changes in their lives, which can be a lot of pressure. Maybe they're not seeing the results they expected as quickly as they hoped. There's a difference between feeling hopeful and feeling like you're not getting the immediate relief you want." Jake sat back in his chair, absorbing Rachel's words. She was right, of course. Not everyone would have the same experience. What seemed like small steps to him, the slow, steady progress of plant-based nutrition and mindful movement, might feel like an insurmountable challenge to others. For some, the expectation of quick results might have been the very thing that led them to leave. "I guess I've been so focused on the long-term vision that I've lost sight of the fact that some people need immediate results to stay motivated," Jake said, a sense of realization dawning on him. "We can't ignore the fact that some people might need more encouragement, more support, at different points in the process." Rachel smiled gently. "Exactly. The community is a huge part of that, but we need to make sure we're meeting people where they are. Not everyone will have the same timeline, and that's okay. It's about finding the right balance between patience and results." Jake decided to take action. He reached out to some of the participants who had recently left the program, hoping to understand their reasons for dropping out. The responses he received were a mix of disappointment and frustration. Several of them mentioned feeling like they weren't seeing enough progress fast enough, even though they had been consistent with the program's guidelines. Others spoke about the pressure they felt to keep up with the pace of the group or the fear that they would never feel normal again. The feedback was invaluable. It wasn't that the program wasn't effective, it was that the participants weren't always able to see it for themselves in the moment. The slow, gradual changes they were experiencing weren't immediately visible, and that made them question their commitment. Jake knew he needed to address this issue directly. He couldn't let the fear of not seeing immediate results derail everything they had worked so hard to build. The next week, Jake launched a new initiative within the program called Small Wins, Big Impact. The idea was simple: every week, participants would focus on a single small goal, something achievable within their daily routine, that they could celebrate. Whether it was walking for an extra 5 minutes, swapping out one meal for a plant-based option, or even just getting a good night's sleep, these small victories would be recognized and celebrated in the community. Jake hoped this would help people feel more successful in their progress, no matter how small. He also introduced weekly check-ins, where participants could share their struggles and triumphs in a supportive, non-judgmental environment. These check-ins were meant to provide a space for people to vent, ask questions, and share their experiences without fear of feeling like they were falling behind. The impact of the new initiative was immediate. Participation in the check-ins was high, and more people began posting about their small wins. At first, it was just small things. A participant shared how they finally managed to cut down on their pain medication for a day. Another celebrated their first full week of sticking to the plant-based diet without feeling overwhelmed. Others posted photos of their outdoor walks, beaming with pride over their new achievements. The group sessions became more dynamic, too. People weren't just talking about big, dramatic changes, they were celebrating everyday victories. The tone of the program shifted, and the overall energy felt lighter. Participants seemed to appreciate the new approach, one that recognized that healing wasn't linear and that every step forward, no matter how small, mattered. Jake found himself more connected to the program than ever before. He began reading through each post with a renewed sense of purpose, appreciating the subtle changes that were taking place in the community. As he watched the relationships within the group strengthen and the overall atmosphere become more supportive, Jake knew that he was on the right track. But as the program continued to grow, Jake also realized that growth wasn't just about numbers, it was about sustainability. As more people joined, there were bound to be new challenges, new needs, and new obstacles. Scaling the program meant finding ways to keep the essence of what made it special while accommodating a larger audience. There were days when Jake felt overwhelmed by the sheer scope of it all, the emails, the calls, the constant stream of feedback. But every time he thought about quitting, he remembered the people like Clara and Linda, the participants whose lives were changing in ways they had never thought possible. The program had touched lives, built communities, and brought hope to people who had once felt isolated and hopeless. And Jake realized that no matter the challenges ahead, he couldn't stop now. It was a crisp morning when Jake walked into his office, his mind swirling with the enormity of what lay ahead. The program had reached new milestones, its impact spreading faster than he could have ever imagined. But now, the time had come to make a decision that would shape the future of the entire initiative. As he sat down at his desk, Jake reflected on everything he had accomplished. What had begun as a small program aimed at helping people manage arthritis had blossomed into a global movement. Hundreds of people, all over the world, were using his system to transform their health, and countless others were joining the community every day. The testimonials were powerful, the data was promising, and the sense of community was stronger than ever. But as the program grew, so did the complexity of managing it. Jake had built something incredible, but with success came new challenges. He could no longer personally manage every aspect of the program. At least, not in the way he had in the past. He needed to scale the initiative, but he also knew that scaling meant making tough choices. Could he maintain the intimate, supportive feel of the community as it grew? Could he uphold the values of the program while expanding it to serve thousands, or even millions, of people? Jake had always been committed to two things, the integrity of the program and the people it helped. The program wasn't just about treating arthritis, it was about offering a holistic approach to wellness, one that recognized the importance of emotional support, community, and long-term commitment to health. He knew that if they scaled too quickly, the core essence of the program could be lost. The decision weighed heavily on him, but he also knew that he couldn't stand still. The need for this kind of program was more evident than ever. The world was in the midst of a health crisis, with chronic diseases like arthritis affecting millions of people. Every day, he received messages from people who were desperate for a solution, who felt like they had tried everything else, only to be let down time and time again. Jake realized that the program had the potential to change the course of their lives. But in order to do that, he would have to take a leap of faith. That afternoon, Rachel walked into his office, her face serious but calm. "Jake, we need to talk," she said, sitting down across from him. "I've been thinking about the next steps for the program. We're at a crossroads, and we need to figure out how we're going to scale it without losing what makes it special." Jake nodded, knowing exactly what she was talking about. "I've been thinking about it too. We can't keep managing things the way we have. The program is growing too fast, and there's no way we can continue at this pace without a solid plan in place. But I'm worried about losing the personal touch. I don't want it to feel like just another generic wellness program." Rachel smiled, her eyes filled with understanding. "I know exactly what you mean. We've built something so meaningful, but scaling means we're going to need more structure. We need a bigger team, better resources, and a way to ensure that everyone still feels connected to the community. But we can do it. We just need to stay true to our values." Jake exhaled, feeling a sense of relief that Rachel was on the same page. "I think we can do it too. But it's going to take some tough decisions. We'll need to bring in new people to help manage the day-to-day operations, but we can't let go of the things that make this program work. The personal connections, the support system, the sense of belonging, those are non-negotiable. Rachel nodded. Exactly. It's about finding the right balance between growth and maintaining the integrity of the program. And I believe we can do that. We've built a strong foundation, and now it's time to take it to the next level. Jake's thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door. It was Sarah from HealthCo, and she had come to discuss the partnership they had been working on. HealthCo had offered to help take the program nationwide, providing additional resources and support to help it expand faster. I know you're nervous about scaling, Sarah said as she sat down across from Jake. But I think this could be the perfect opportunity to take the program to the next level. We have the infrastructure to support the growth, and you don't have to do it alone. Jake listened carefully as Sarah outlined her vision for the partnership. HealthCo had the technology, the funding, and the reach to help the program grow exponentially. They could provide additional marketing, more resources for participants, and even offer telehealth services to make the program more accessible to people who couldn't attend in person. But even as Sarah spoke, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that something would be lost if they moved forward too quickly. The program had always been personal, intimate, even, and he was afraid that partnering with a larger organization would take away that personal touch. I appreciate the offer, Sarah, Jake said slowly. And I see the potential in what you're suggesting. But my concern is that if we grow too fast, we might lose the heart of what we've built. This program is about more than just physical health. It's about the connections people make with each other. If we lose that, I'm not sure it's worth it. Sarah looked thoughtful. I get it. But I think there's a way to do both. We don't have to compromise the community aspect. In fact, I think this partnership could actually enhance it. We'll work together to make sure that the program remains true to its roots. Over the next few weeks, Jake and Rachel worked tirelessly to design a plan that would allow the program to scale without losing its core values. They brought in new team members, expanded their network of health professionals, and developed an online platform that would allow participants to connect with one another in real time. They made sure that each new member of the team shared their vision for the program and understood the importance of community and personalized support. Jake also implemented new protocols to ensure that every participant felt supported throughout their journey. They would still have the small wins and weekly check-ins, and the community forums would remain a key part of the program. The message was clear: this wasn't just a program, it was a movement, and every member was a vital part of it. The day the new version of the program launched, Jake felt a wave of excitement and trepidation. As the sign-ups poured in and the community grew, he knew that this was the moment that would define everything they had worked for. By the end of the first week, it was clear that they had struck the right balance. The new platform worked seamlessly, allowing people to track their progress, connect with others, and access personalized support. The community remained strong, and participants continued to share their stories of triumph and struggle. The program was growing, but it was still a place where people could feel seen and heard. Jake watched as the program flourished, and for the first time in a long time, he felt a sense of peace. He had passed the final test. The program was no longer just his, it belonged to everyone who had ever been a part of it. And as long as that community remained intact, the program's future was limitless. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?